Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Cryptic Corpse. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Now find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Bellweather, and I should have died in Vietnam. Maybe then, none of this would have happened. It's October 1979, and I'm sitting in my truck outside the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. The fog is rolling in thick, making everything look like a ghost story. My hands won't stop shaking, and it's not from the cold. It's because of what happened on my 13th birthday, 16 years ago. The day I learned my family was cursed. You see, my great-great-great-grandfather was Judge Samuel Bellweather. Back in Salem, he was the one who sent witches to burn. He was so sure he was doing God's work, so proud of himself for cleaning up the world. But there was one woman he condemned who didn't go quietly. Mother Leeds. She cursed our entire family. Line before they killed her, "Your blood will know no peace," she screamed as the flames took her. 13 generations will pay for your crimes. I'm the 13th generation. Growing up, my parents told me stories, not fairy tales like other kids got. Stories about our family curse, how every Bellweather man lived with demons following him, how we all died young and violent. They said it was just old family legends, but they taught me things anyway. How to read Latin, how to recognize evil when I saw it, how to fight things that shouldn't exist. On my 13th birthday, I found out it wasn't just stories. I woke up screaming that night, not from a nightmare, but from pain. Real burning pain across my chest and arms. When I looked in the mirror, there were marks on my skin. Strange symbols that looked like they'd been carved with a hot knife. My parents rushed in and saw them. My mother started crying. My father just nodded like he'd been waiting for this day his whole life. "It's time," he said. "Time to teach you how to fight back." The marks never went away. They're still there now, hidden under my army jacket. Sometimes they burn when something evil is near. They've been burning for 3 days straight. I came back from Vietnam different. We all did. But my difference wasn't just from the war. Over there, I started seeing things that weren't there. Dead Vietnamese children standing next to dead Salem. Witches. All of them staring at me with the same look, like they knew who I was, like they knew what my family had done. The other soldiers thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But then weird things started happening around me. My rifle never jammed when others did. Bullets seemed to miss me when they should have hit, like something was keeping me alive for a reason. When I got home, I found letters waiting for me. Letters from people with names like Corey and Bishop and Proctor, descendants of the witches my ancestor had killed. But these letters weren't angry. They were sad, forgiving even. "We know it wasn't you," one letter said, "but we also know you're the one who has to end this. That's why I'm here now, in the Pine Barrens, where Mother Leeds lived before they dragged her to Salem, where she raised 12 normal children and one that wasn't normal at all, where her 13th child became something else after she cursed it in her rage. The Jersey Devil. My partner Jake is asleep in the passenger seat. Jake's not his real name, but it's what everyone calls him. He lost his left eye to the same thing that gave me these scars. We met in a VA hospital, both of us trying to explain wounds that doctors couldn't understand, both of us knowing we'd seen the same monster. Jake's been my hunting partner for 2 years now. We track things that shouldn't exist and try to send them back where they came from. We've killed 3 demons, 2 ghosts, and something that might have been a vampire. But we've never faced anything like what's waiting for us in these woods. The compass on my dashboard is spinning crazy. It should point north, but it keeps swinging toward the southeast, toward Leeds Point, where Mother Leeds's cabin used to stand, where she gave birth to her 13th child and damned it to become a monster, where it's been waiting for me. My rifle is in the back seat. It's an M14 from the war, but Father Murphy blessed it before I left. The bullets are silver, carved with crosses. In my backpack I have my great-grandfather's journal. It's full of binding spells and protection prayers, written in his shaky handwriting. "The curse ends with you," he wrote on the last page. One way or another, I light a cigarette and check my watch. 3 in the morning, the witching hour. Like my grandmother used to say, the time when the wall between our world and the other world gets thin. Jake stirs in his seat and opens his good eye. "We there yet?" he asks. "Almost," I tell him. "You sure you want to do this?" "It's my family curse. You don't have to." "Shut up, Marcus," he says, but he's smiling. "We've been through this. That thing took my eye when I was trying to help you, made it personal." I nod and start the truck. The engine sounds too loud in the quiet night. As we drive deeper into the Pine Barrens, I can feel something watching us. Something that's been waiting 16 years for me to come home. The marks on my chest are burning like fire now. We're close. The dirt road ends at a rusty gate. There's a sign that says, "No hunting, state property." But someone scratched out the words and wrote "turn back" underneath. Jake gets out to open the gate, and I notice his hand is shaking too. "Feels different here," he says when he gets back in the truck. He's right. The air feels thick, like before a big storm. But there are no clouds, just that heavy fog rolling between the pine trees, like fingers reaching for us. We drive another mile before the road gets too rough for the truck. I park next to a big oak tree that's been split by lightning. The burned wood still smells like smoke, even though the storm that hit it probably happened years ago. Jake grabs his shotgun, and I take my rifle. We both have flashlights, but I don't want to use them yet. The moon gives just enough light to see where we're walking. The first thing I notice is how quiet it is. Not normal quiet, wrong quiet. In most woods, you hear bugs and nightbirds and small animals moving around. Here, there's nothing. Even our footsteps sound too loud. "Which way?" Jake whispers. I check the compass again. The needle is still spinning toward Leeds Point, about 3 miles southeast. But as we start walking, I see something that makes me stop. There are symbols carved into the trees. Old symbols cut deep into the bark years ago. They look like the marks on my chest, but these are different. Protective symbols, my grandfather called them. The kind people carved to keep evil away. Someone was here before us, I tell Jake. Someone who knew what they were dealing with. The symbols are on every 3rd or 4th tree, always at eye level. Like someone was walking this same path, marking their way. But the carvings are old, real old. The bark has grown around them, making them look like scars. We follow the marked trees for about half a mile. That's when we start hearing it. At first, I think it's wind. A low sound coming from deeper in the woods, but wind changes, goes up and down. This sound stays the same, like someone far away calling for help. "You hear that?" Jake asks. I nod. We both stop walking and listen. The sound comes again, clearer this time. It's not wind, it's voices. Lots of voices, all talking at once, but too far away to understand the words. "Sounds like a crowd," Jake says. "But there shouldn't be a crowd out here, not at 3 in the morning, not in the middle of nowhere." We keep walking, and the voices get a little louder. Now I can hear what they're saying, and it makes my blood go cold. They're speaking Latin, the same words I heard in church as a kid. Prayer words, but not prayers. Asking for help, prayers for the dead. The marks on my chest are burning worse now. I can feel them through my jacket, hot like someone's holding a lighter to my skin. We come to a small clearing, and Jake grabs my arm. "Marcus," he says, "look." In the middle of the clearing, there's a circle of stones. Old stones covered with moss and carved with more symbols. Inside the circle, the ground is black, like something burned there a long time ago. But what makes us both stare is the ground around the stones. There are footprints everywhere. Human footprints, but wrong somehow. Too deep, like whoever made them was carrying something heavy. and they're arranged in a pattern, all pointing toward the center of the stone circle. How old do you think these are? Jake asks. I kneel down and touch one of the prints. The dirt is hard, baked like clay. These prints have been here for years, maybe decades old, I say. But look at this. I point to a set of prints that are different from the others. Smaller, deeper, and they don't look quite human. The toes are too long, and there's something that might be claw marks at the tips. Jake shines his flashlight on them, and we both see it at the same time. These prints are fresh. The dirt around them is still soft. We're not alone out here, Jake says. That's when we hear the bell. It's coming from the direction we were already heading, toward Leeds Point, an old church bell ringing slow and steady. But I know there's no church out here. The nearest church is back in town, miles away. The bell rings 12 times, then stops. In the silence that follows, I hear something else. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps, walking through the woods toward us. We need to move, I whisper. Jake doesn't argue. We leave the clearing fast, following the marked trees deeper into the pine barrens. Behind us, the footsteps keep coming. Not running, just walking steady, like whatever's making them knows exactly where we're going. The trees get thicker as we walk. The pine branches hang so low, we have to duck under them. My jacket catches on the sharp needles, and when I pull free, I smell something strange. Not pine sap, something else. Something that reminds me of the hospital where I woke up after getting my scars. Antiseptic, medicine, and underneath that something rotting. We've been walking for maybe an hour when Jake stops and points ahead. There, he says. Through the trees I can see a light, not electric light, firelight, orange and flickering like a campfire or torches. We move closer, staying low and quiet. The light is coming from another clearing, bigger than the first one, and what we see there makes both of us forget to breathe. There are people in the clearing, maybe 20 of them, standing in 2 lines facing each other. They're wearing old clothes, like from a history book, long dark coats and tall hats. The men have beards, and the women have their hair covered with white caps. They're not moving, just standing there perfectly still like statues. Between the 2 lines, there's a wooden platform, like a stage but smaller. On the platform there's a chair, a big wooden chair with leather straps on the arms and legs, and sitting in the chair is a woman. Even from where we're hiding, I can see she's scared. Her hands are tied, and her mouth is covered with cloth. She's wearing a simple dress, and her hair is long and dark. One of the men in the long coat steps forward. He's holding a piece of paper, and when he starts to read from it, I recognize the voice. It's my great-great-great-grandfather's voice, Judge Samuel Bellweather. By order of this court, he says, you have been found guilty of witchcraft and consorting with the devil. The woman in the chair tries to scream, but the cloth muffles the sound. The sentence is death by fire, my ancestor continues. May God have mercy on your soul. That's when I realize what we're seeing. It's not really happening, not now. This is a memory. A ghost of something that happened long ago, playing over and over like a broken record. And the woman in the chair is Mother Leeds. Jake tugs on my sleeve. When I look at him, he points to the edge of the clearing. Something else is watching the ghost trial. Something tall and dark, standing just inside the tree line. It has the shape of a man, but wrong. Too tall, with arms that hang down too far, and it's looking right at us. Jake and I don't move. We barely breathe. The tall shadow at the edge of the clearing hasn't moved either, but I can feel it watching us. Waiting. The ghost trial keeps playing out in front of us. My ancestor reads more charges against Mother Leeds, witchcraft, devil worship, cursing the crops, all the usual stuff they accused women of back then. But then I hear something that makes my stomach drop. You have cursed the Bellweather family, Judge Samuel says to the woman in the chair. You have threatened to damn 13 generations of innocent blood. Mother Leeds tries to speak through the cloth over her mouth. Her eyes are wild with fear and anger. Remove her bonds so she may speak her final words, my ancestor commands. One of the other men unties the cloth. Mother Leeds spits and glares at the judge. When she speaks, her voice carries across the clearing like she's standing right next to us. Innocent, she laughs, but it's not a happy sound. You burned my neighbors, you killed my friends, you destroyed families because you were afraid of women who knew things you didn't. Speak your piece, witch, Judge Samuel says. Then face your judgment. Mother Leeds looks right at him, right at my ancestor, and her voice gets quiet and cold. Samuel. Bellweather, she says. I curse you and your blood. I curse your children and their children. 13 generations will know no peace. They will see the faces of everyone you've killed. They will carry the weight of your crimes until one of them has the courage to pay for what you've done. The scene starts to fade, but her voice gets louder. And my 13th child, she screams. My poor damn boy will be your family's judge and executioner. The ghost people disappear like smoke. The platform vanishes. The clearing goes dark, but the tall shadow is still there. Jake grabs my arm. We need to go, now. We back away from the clearing, moving slow and quiet. The shadow doesn't follow us, but I can feel it watching until we're out of sight. We walk for another half hour without talking. The marked trees keep leading us southeast toward Leeds Point, but now there are other things in the woods with us. I hear them first. Footsteps that don't match our pace. Sometimes they're ahead of us, sometimes behind. Always just out of sight. Then I start seeing things, a flash of white moving between the trees. The shape of a person, but when I look directly, there's nothing there. You seeing this too? Jake whispers. Yeah, I say. We're not alone anymore. The compass is spinning faster now, the needle jumping around like it's going crazy. But it always swings back to point the same direction. Southeast, to where this all started. We come to a stream maybe 3 feet wide. The water is dark and moves slow. There's a fallen log we can use as a bridge, but Jake stops before crossing. Marcus, he says, look at the water. I look down and almost drop my rifle. There are faces in the water, not reflections. Faces under. The surface looking up at us. Men and women with scared eyes and open mouths, like they're trying to scream but can't make sound. How many people do you think your ancestor killed? Jake asks. I think about the letters I got from the other families, the Coreys, the bishops, the proctors, all the names from the Salem trials. Too many, I say. We cross the log quick, trying not to look down, but I can feel those faces watching us from below. On the other side of the stream, the woods change. The trees are older here, bigger. Their branches twist together overhead, blocking out most of the moonlight. It's like walking through a tunnel made of wood and leaves. The marks on my chest are burning so bad now, I have to stop and lean against a tree. When I touch my shirt, it's wet. The scars are bleeding. It's close, I tell Jake. Whatever we're looking for, it's close. That's when we smell it. Smoke. Not wood smoke from a campfire. This smells like burning cloth and hair and other things. Things I don't want to think about. The smell gets stronger as we walk. Soon we can see smoke drifting between the trees, thick and grey. We come to another clearing, smaller than the others. In the center, there's a pile of blackened stones arranged in a circle. The smoke is coming from there, even though I can't see any fire. Around the stones, the ground is covered with footprints. But these aren't like the human prints we saw before. These are different. Hoof prints, like from a horse, but wrong somehow. Too big, with claw marks where the toes should be. The prints make a path around the stone circle, over and over, like something was walking in circles for hours. Jake points to a tree at the edge of the clearing. There's something carved into the bark, not symbols this time, words. Fresh words cut deep into the wood. Marcus Bellweather must pay. Below that, in the same rough letters, the 13th generation ends here. My hands start shaking. Someone or something carved those words recently. The sap is still sticky around the cuts. How does it know we're here? Jake whispers. Before I can answer, we hear it. A sound like nothing I've ever heard before. Part horse whinny, part human scream, part something else entirely. It's coming from deeper in the woods, but it sounds close. Too close. The hoof prints around the stone circle start to glow. Not bright, just a faint green light that makes them easy to see in the dark. It's marking territory, I realize. Showing us where it's been. The sound comes again, closer this time. And with it, I hear something else. A voice. A man's voice. Speaking clear and loud. Marcus Bellweather. The voice sounds familiar, but I can't place it. I've been waiting for you. Jake raises his shotgun. I check my rifle. The silver bullets feel warm in my hands. 16 years I've been waiting. The voice continues. Ever since you received the mark. Ever since you became old enough to understand what your family did. The voice is coming from all around us now, like it's bouncing off the trees. Your ancestor condemned an innocent woman to death. He destroyed families. He caused pain that echoes through centuries. I know that voice now. It sounds like my great-great-great-grandfather, like Judge Samuel Bellweather, but twisted, angry. And now, the voice says, it's time for the Bellweather family to face judgment. The trees around the clearing start to shake, not from wind, from something big moving through them, something heading straight for us. Jake and I stand back in the center of the clearing, our guns ready. The stone circle is still smoking, and the green glow from the hoofprints is getting brighter. Whatever happens, Jake says, we stick together. I nod, but I'm thinking about what Mother Leeds said, about her 13th child being our judge and executioner. The Jersey Devil isn't just some monster. It's been waiting my whole life for this moment. The trees stop shaking. Everything goes quiet. Then, from the darkness between the pines, two red eyes open and look right at me. The red eyes stare at us from the darkness between the trees. They're too high up to belong to a normal animal, maybe 8 feet off the ground, and they glow like hot coals. Jake's shotgun is pointed right at them, but his hands are steady. Mine are shaking so bad I can barely hold my rifle. Show yourself, I call out, trying to keep my voice calm. The eyes move closer, slowly. Whatever's watching us isn't in a hurry. Then I hear hooves on the ground, heavy hooves, walking careful and quiet. The sound gets closer, and the red eyes drop lower, like the thing is bending down to look at us better. Marcus Bellweather, it says, and the voice is clearer now. It really does sound like my ancestor, but wrong. Like someone doing a bad impression of Judge Samuel. Do you know why you're here? Because of what my family did, I say. Because of the witch trials. Something steps out of the trees. It's big, maybe 7 feet tall, walking on 2 legs like a man, but the legs are wrong. They bend backward at the knee, like a horse's legs. The feet are hooves, black and split. Its body is covered in dark fur, and its arms are too long for its size. But it's the head that makes Jake curse under his breath. It looks like a horse's head, but stretched out and twisted. The mouth is full of teeth that are too sharp, too white. And those red eyes are looking right at me with something that might be intelligence. Your ancestor, it says Judge Samuel Bellweather, sentenced my mother to death. He called her a witch. He said she consorted with devils. The Jersey Devil, steps closer. Its hooves leave those glowing green prints in the dirt. But the real devil, it continues, was sitting behind the judge's bench. I keep my rifle pointed at its chest, but I don't shoot. Not yet. Something tells me I need to hear what it has to say. She cursed him, I say. Your mother cursed my family. The devil nods. Its head moves too much, like a puppet on strings. She cursed all of you, 13 generations. But she also cursed me. It touches its chest with one long clawed hand. I was her 13th child, born normal, born human. But her curse changed. Me. Made me into this. Jake glances at me. Marcus, whatever this thing is saying, don't listen to it. But I have to listen. I've been carrying this curse my whole life. I need to understand it. What do you want from me? I ask. The Jersey Devil laughs, and the sound makes my teeth hurt. Justice, it says. Your ancestor destroyed innocent lives. He killed people who were just different, just trying to help their communities, and he did it because he was afraid. It starts walking around us in a circle, just like the hoof prints we found earlier. I've watched your family for 300 years, it says. Watched you all suffer, watched you all die young and violent. But it's not enough. The curse won't end until someone from the Bellweather line pays the full price. What price? I ask, though I think I already know. Your life, it says simply, given willingly to balance the scales. Jake raises his shotgun higher. Like hell. The devil stops walking and looks at Jake. When it smiles, I can see all those sharp teeth. Jacob Murphy, it says. Lost your eye. Trying to protect him, didn't you? How noble. But this isn't your fight. It became my fight when that thing took my eye, Jake says. The devil tilts its head. That wasn't me, Jacob. That was something else. Something smaller. I don't bother with little demons. It turns back to me. I only come for Bellwethers. My chest is on fire now. The scars are burning so bad I can smell my own blood through my shirt. But something the devil said is bothering me. You said my life, given willingly, I say. What if I don't give it willingly? The devil stops smiling. Then I take it anyway. But if you give it freely, if you accept the justice of it, the curse ends. Your family line is free. No more Bellweather children will carry this burden. I think about the letters I got from the other families, the descendants of the people my ancestor killed. They were forgiving, but they also said I was the one who had to end this. How do I know you're telling the truth? I ask. The devil spreads its arms wide. Around us, the air starts to shimmer, like heat waves but cold. Suddenly we're not in the clearing anymore. We're in a courtroom, an old courtroom with wooden benches and tall windows. I'm sitting behind a big desk, wearing a black robe. But it's not me. It's Judge Samuel Bellweather, my ancestor, and I'm seeing through his eyes. In front of me, a woman is tied to a chair. Mother leads. She looks younger than she did in the ghost trial, but her eyes are just as angry. You know I'm innocent, she says to me. To him, you know I never hurt anyone. Judge Samuel, I can feel his thoughts like they're my own. Doesn't care. He's afraid of her, afraid of what she represents. Women who know things he doesn't. Women who aren't afraid of him. Guilty, he says, and I feel his satisfaction when he says it. The vision changes. Now I'm watching Mother Leeds burn. I can smell her hair catching fire. I can hear her screaming, and I can feel Judge Samuel's pride. He thinks he's doing God's work, but then she looks right at him, right at me. Through the flames, she speaks the curse. Your blood will know no peace. 13 generations will pay. The vision ends. We're back in the clearing. The Jersey Devil is watching me with those red eyes. Now you know, it says. Now you understand what kind of man your ancestor was. I do understand. Judge Samuel wasn't protecting anyone. He was just afraid and cruel. And people died because of it. The curse was justice, the devil continues. But it's gone on long enough. End it, Marcus. Take responsibility for what your family did. Jake steps closer to me. Don't listen to it, Marcus. We can fight this thing. I look at my friend. Jake's been with me for 2 years, helping me hunt monsters. He's already lost an eye because of my family's curse. How much more should he have to suffer? I think about my parents, dead young like all the Bellwethers. I think about the cousins I never got to meet because they died in accidents that weren't really accidents. The devil is right. This has to end, but I'm not ready to die. Not yet. I need time to think, I tell the devil. It nods. You have until dawn. When the sun comes up, I want your answer. Yes or no? Live with the curse or die to end it. The devil steps back into the shadows between the trees. The red eyes fade, but its voice carries back to us. I'll be waiting at Leeds Point, where it all began, and then it's gone. Jake and I, are alone in the clearing. The stone circle has stopped smoking. The hoofprints have stopped glowing. We're not seriously considering this, are we? Jake asks. I look east. The sky is still dark, but dawn is maybe 2 hours away. I don't know, I say. Maybe it's time to end this. Jake grabs my shoulder. Marcus, that thing could be lying. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there is. But I've been carrying this curse for 16 years. I've seen what it does to people, what it's done to my family. Maybe it's time to pay the price. Jake and I walk through the dark woods toward Leeds Point. Neither of us talks much. What is there to say? In an hour, the sun will come up, and I have to make a choice that will change everything. The trees start to thin out as we get closer to the bay. I can smell salt water and hear waves hitting the shore. My compass finally stops spinning and points straight ahead. Leeds Point isn't much to look at. Just a small clearing next to the water with the ruins of an old foundation made of crumbling stones. This is where Mother Leeds lived with her 12 normal children and one that wasn't normal at all. The Jersey Devil is waiting for us. It's standing in the middle of the stone foundation, perfectly still. In the grey light before dawn, it looks even more wrong than it did in the dark, like someone took parts from different animals and stuck them together. You came, it says when it sees us. I said I would, I reply. Jake stands next to me, his shotgun ready. Marcus, you don't have to do this. The devil looks at Jake with something that might be pity. He does, Jacob. The curse won't break any other way. I've tried for 300 years to find another solution. You could just let it go, Jake says. Forgive and forget. The devil shakes its massive head. Some things can't be forgiven until they're paid for. Your friend understands that, don't you, Marcus? I do understand. In Vietnam, I saw what happened when people did terrible things and never faced consequences. The guilt eats at you. It spreads like poison. What exactly do you want me to do? I ask. The devil points to the center of the foundation. There's a flat stone there, stained dark with what might be old blood. Lie down on the altar stone, it says. Accept responsibility for your ancestors' crimes. Give your life willingly, and the curse ends forever. I look at the stone. It's about the size of a coffin, and if I don't, then I kill you anyway, and the curse continues. Your children will carry it. Their children will carry it. The Bellweather line will suffer until someone finally has the courage to do what needs to be done. Jake steps forward. What if I kill you first? The devil laughs. You can't kill me, Jacob. I'm not really alive. I'm justice given form. I'm the consequence of actions that were never punished. I think about my parents. They died in a car crash. When I was 20, the brakes failed at just the wrong moment on just the wrong curve. An accident, the police said. But I knew better. I think about my cousins. House fires, hunting accidents, freak illnesses, all of them dead before they turned 30. I think about the scars on my chest, burning like fire every time evil gets close. How do I know the curse will really end? I ask. The devil reaches into the shadow at its feet and pulls out a piece of paper, old paper, yellow and cracked. This is the original curse, it says, written in your ancestor's own hand. He recorded everything, you know, every trial, every execution. He was proud of his work. It hands me the paper. The writing is faded, but I can read it. Mother Leeds spoke a curse upon the Bellweather line this day. She claims 13 generations must pay for the justice I have delivered in God's name. I fear no witch's curse, for I do the Lord's work. At the bottom in fresher ink, someone has written, the 13th generation must choose, sacrifice or suffering eternal. My mother's final words, the devil explains. She added them herself the night she died. I look at Jake. He's been my best friend for 2 years, the only person who understood what I was going through. I can't ask you to carry this burden. 2, I tell him. You're not asking, Jake says. I'm volunteering. We're partners, remember? But I see something in his eyes. Relief. He's tired of running from monsters, tired of losing pieces of himself to things that shouldn't exist. There's another way. I say suddenly. The devil tilts its head. What way? The curse says one of us has to pay. It doesn't say it has to be me. Jake understands immediately. Marcus, no. You lost your eye because of my family's curse, I continue. You've already paid part of the price. Maybe that's enough to change the rules. The devil considers this. Around us the air starts to feel different, lighter somehow. Shared sacrifice, it says slowly. Both of you accepting responsibility. Both of you paying a price. What kind of price? Jake asks. Your lives, the devil says, but not your deaths. Stay here. Guard this place. Make sure nothing like the Salem trials ever happens again. I think about this, spending eternity in the Pine Barrens with Jake, protecting people from the kind of fear and hatred that created this mess in the first place. It's not the life I planned, but it's better than being dead. What do you think? I ask Jake. He's quiet for a long moment. Then he smiles. Beats getting eaten by a monster, the devil nods. Then step onto the altar stone, both of you. We walk to the center of the foundation. The stone is cold under our feet, but not scary cold. Just cool, like stepping into shade on a hot day. Repeat after me, the devil says. We accept responsibility for the crimes of the Bellweather line. We accept responsibility for the crimes of the Bellweather line, Jake and I say together. We offer our lives in payment for the suffering caused. We offer our lives in payment for the suffering caused. We will guard against injustice and protect the innocent. We will guard against injustice and protect the innocent. The devil raises its hands, and I feel something change inside me. Like a weight I've been carrying my whole life suddenly gets lighter. The scars on my chest stop burning. For the first time since I was 13, they don't hurt. The curse is broken, the devil says. Its voice sounds different now, sadder but also relieved. The Bellweather line is free. Around us the air shimmers. I see faces in the light. Mother leads, but also other people, the ones who died in Salem. They're smiling. Thank you, Mother Leeds says to me, to both of us. You chose justice over fear. You chose sacrifice over selfishness. The faces fade. The devil is changing too, getting smaller, more human-looking. The horse head is gone, replaced by the face of a young man with kind eyes. I was 12 when she cursed me, he says. I've been trapped in this form for 300 years, waiting for someone to break the cycle. He looks toward the east, where the sun is just starting to rise. I can rest now, he says, and so can she. The devil, the boy, walks toward the water. With each step, he becomes more transparent. By the time he reaches the shore, he's gone. Jake and I are alone at Leeds Point. The sun comes up warm and bright. The Pine Barrens look different in daylight, peaceful. So what now? Jake asks. I think about what the devil said, about guarding this place, about protecting people from the kind of fear that caused all this trouble. Now we do our job, I say. Jake nods. He understands. We're not exactly alive anymore, but we're not dead either. We're something in between. Guardians, I guess. Watchers. And for the first time in my life, the curse marks on my chest are completely gone. The Bellweather curse is finally over, but our work is just beginning. My name is Bobby Thibodeau, and I should have listened to my grandmother's warnings about the swamp. The August heat was sitting on Honey Island Swamp like a wet blanket. Even at 8 in the evening, the air was thick enough to choke on. I was out checking my moonshine stills, same as I'd done every night for the past 15 years. The cypress trees stood like old men in the black water, their roots twisted and gnarled like arthritic fingers. But tonight was different. Tonight, the swamp was too quiet. Usually you'd hear frogs croaking, night birds calling, maybe an alligator splashing somewhere in the distance. Tonight there was nothing, just the sound of my paddle cutting through the water and my old hound dog Boudreaux whimpering in the bottom of the pirogue. "What's got into you, boy?" I whispered, scratching behind his ears. But Boudreaux just kept staring at the water, his whole body shaking like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. You see, my family's been living in these waters for over 100 years. My great-grandmother, she was Marie Thibodeau, and folks said she was kin to Marie Laveau herself. She knew things, dark things. She used to tell me stories about creatures that lived in the deep parts of the swamp, things that weren't quite human anymore. The Rugaroo, she'd whisper, making the sign of the cross. It comes for families like ours, Bobby, families with the sight. I always thought they were just stories to keep me from wandering too far into the swamp at night. But as I got older, I started noticing things. Sometimes I'd see shapes moving in the water that weren't gators. Sometimes I'd hear voices calling my name when nobody was around. Tonight, as my boat slid between the cypress knees, I caught a smell that made my blood run cold. It was sweet and rotten at the same time, like flowers left too long on a grave. But mixed in with it was something else, something that reminded me of my grandmother's perfume. The gardenia water she used to wear to church. Boudreaux started howling. I looked up and saw them, little glass bottles hanging from the branches of an old oak tree. Bottle trees, my grandmother called them. She used to make them to trap evil spirits. I hadn't seen one in years, thought they were all gone. But here they were, dozens of them, swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. The bottles were glowing with a soft blue light. Jesus, I breathed, crossing myself like my grandmother taught me. That's when I heard it. A voice, clear as day, speaking. In the old French Creole my grandmother used when she was scared, le Rugaroo réveille, the werewolf awakens. I grabbed my paddle and started moving faster, but the swamp seemed to be fighting me. Currents that should have been going one way were pulling another. Branches that had never touched the water before were now hanging low, trying to snag my boat, and then I saw the reflection. In the black water beside my pirogue, I could see myself clear as day. But standing behind me in the reflection was something else, something tall and thin with eyes that glowed like coals. It was wearing a face I recognized, my grandmother's face. But it was wrong somehow, like a mask that didn't fit quite right. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the empty swamp and the sound of my own breathing. Boudreaux was scratching at the bottom of the boat now, whining and carrying. Unlike the world was ending, and maybe it was, because as I looked back at the water, I saw more reflections, more faces I knew. My daddy, who'd been dead 10 years. My cousin Pierre, who drowned in these very waters when we were kids. They were all standing behind me in the reflection, but when I turned around, I was alone. That's when I knew my grandmother's stories weren't just stories. Something was waking, up in the deep parts of the swamp. Something that had been sleeping for a long time, held back by old magic and older prayers. And it knew my name. I made it back to my shack that night, but I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see those faces in the water. My grandmother's voice kept echoing in my head, telling me stories I'd tried to forget. When I was 8 years old, she sat me down on her front porch and told me about our family, how we came to Louisiana from Haiti back in the 1800s, how we brought old knowledge with us, knowledge about things that go bump in the night. Your great-great-grandmother, she was a powerful woman, Grammy had said, rocking back and forth in her chair. She could see things, talk to spirits, but most important, she could bind them. I remember asking what that meant, and Grammy's face had gone serious. Some things, Bobby, they don't belong in our world. They slip through cracks between here and there. Most times they just want to go home. But sometimes, she paused, looking out at the swamp. Sometimes they want to stay. They want to feed. She told me about the settlement that used to be deeper in the swamp, where families like ours lived together, how they worked together to keep bad things locked away, how they built barriers made of salt and iron and prayers. But during the war, she said, when all the menfolk went away to fight, the barriers got weak. That's when it came. The Rugaroo. Grammy described it like something out of a nightmare, a thing that could look like anyone it wanted. But underneath, it was all teeth and claws and hunger. It fed on families, she said, not just their bodies, but their love for each other. It would take the shape of someone you cared about. And when you got close enough, it nearly destroyed us all, Grammy whispered. But your great-great-grandmother, she was smart. She made a trap, used the thing's hunger against it, led it to a place where the barriers were strongest, and she bound it there, locked it away. I asked her if it was still there, and she nodded slowly. Long as there's a Thibodeau to watch over it, it stays put. But if we ever leave, if the family line ever breaks, she shuddered, it'll be free to hunt again. Now, sitting in my kitchen with my hands shaking around a cup of coffee, I understood why she'd told me all this, why she'd made me promise to never leave the swamp for good, why she'd given me her old silver cross and made me wear it every day. I touched the cross now, hanging heavy around my neck. The metal was warm, almost hot against my skin. My phone rang, making me jump. It was my daughter Annie, calling from New Orleans. Daddy. Her voice sounded tired. I had the strangest dream last night. My blood went cold. What kind of dream, baby? I was back home, in the swamp, but it was different, darker. And there was something calling my name from the water, something that sounded like you, but wrong somehow. I gripped the phone tighter. Annie was 6 months pregnant with her first child, my first grandchild. According to Grammy's stories, new blood in the family made the thing stronger, made it hungrier. Annie, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, I want you to stay in the city for a while, okay? Don't come out here. Daddy, what's wrong? You sound scared. Just trust me, sweetheart. Promise me you'll stay put. After I hung up, I walked outside. The morning sun was barely peeking through the cypress trees, but I could already feel the heat building. Boudreau was lying on the porch, but he wasn't resting. His ears were up, listening to something I couldn't hear. That's when I noticed the smell again, sweet and rotten like yesterday, but stronger now. I walked down to the water's edge and saw something that made my stomach turn. Dead fish floating belly up in a perfect circle, like something had poisoned the water in one specific spot. And in the center of the circle, bubbles were rising to the surface. Something was down there, something big. I ran back to the house and pulled out Grammy's old trunk from under my bed. Inside were things I hadn't looked at in years. Candles made from beeswax and blessed salt, a jar of water from 7 different churches, and a map, hand-drawn on yellowed paper. It showed the swamp as it used to be, before the settlement was abandoned. There were marks all over it, symbols I'd never understood as a kid. But now I could see what they were. Barriers, protection spells. And at the center of it all, marked with a big red X, was the place Grammy called the Binding, or site, the place where my great-great-grandmother had trapped the Rugaroo. I looked at the map more closely and felt my heart sink. The binding site was less than a mile from where I'd seen the dead fish. The thing was trying to break free. I spent the next 3 days watching the water, waiting for something to happen. During the day, everything looked normal. Birds sang, fish jumped, alligators sunned themselves on fallen logs. But at night the swamp changed. The dead fish kept appearing in perfect circles. Sometimes I'd find them near my dock, sometimes floating around the old cypress where Grammy used to hang. Her bottle trees, always in circles, always with that sweet rotten smell hanging in the air. Boudreau wouldn't go near the water anymore. He'd sit on the porch, whining and pacing, looking out at the swamp like he was watching for something. Smart dog. He could sense what was coming better than I could. On the 4th night I found the boat. It was tied up to my dock, like someone had just stopped by for a visit. A small metal boat with US government painted on the side in faded letters. Inside were fishing gear, a cooler full of warm beer, and a wallet. The wallet belonged to Agent Ray Como from the ATF. I knew Ray. He'd been sniffing around my operation for months, trying to catch me making moonshine. never could prove anything, though I was too careful, and I knew these waters better than any government man. But Ray's wallet was here, and Ray wasn't. I looked closer at the boat and felt my stomach drop. The metal sides were covered in scratches, deep ones like something with big claws had tried to climb inside, and on the seat where Ray would have been sitting, there were dark stains that looked suspiciously like blood. "Ray!" I called out, my voice echoing across the water. "Ray, you out there?" Nothing answered, except the sound of water lapping against the dock. I grabbed my flashlight and started searching the shoreline. About 100 yards from my place, I found his hat caught on a low branch. Then his jacket torn to pieces and scattered like something had ripped it right off his body. But it was what I found next that made my blood freeze. Carved into the trunk of an old oak tree were symbols, not random scratches, deliberate marks cut deep into the bark. They looked familiar, and it took me a minute to remember where I'd seen them before. In Grammy's old books, the ones she kept hidden in the bottom of her trunk. Protection symbols. The kind people carved when they were desperately trying to keep something away. Ray had known something was hunting him. He'd tried to protect himself the only way he knew how. But whatever got him, it was stronger than any protection spell a government man could scratch into a tree. I was about to head back when I heard it. A voice calling from somewhere deep in the swamp. "Bobby! Bobby, help me!" It sounded like Ray. But Ray was gone. Had been gone for days by the look of things. "Bobby, please, it's got me trapped." The voice was coming from the direction of the old settlement, the place Grammy had told me never to go. The place where the binding site was marked on her map. Should have gone home. Should have locked my doors and waited for morning. But something about that voice pulled at me. Made me want to help. Even though every instinct I had was screaming that this was a trap. I climbed into my pirogue and started paddling toward the voice. The deeper I went into the swamp, the stranger things got. Trees that should have been standing. Upright were bent at impossible angles. Their branches twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. The water was warm, too warm, like something underneath was heating it up, and the smell was getting stronger. Sweet and rotten, with that hint of Grammy's perfume that made my skin crawl. "Bobby, over here!" I followed the voice to a small island I'd never seen before. In the middle of it stood a figure waving at me. It looked like Ray, but something was wrong. He was too tall, his arms were too long, and when he smiled, I could see too many teeth. "Thank God you found me," the thing that looked like Ray said. "I've been trapped here for days. That thing, the monster, it's been hunting me." I kept my distance, my hand moving to the silver cross around my neck. The metal was burning hot against my skin. "Ray," I said carefully, "tell me about the last time we talked. What did you say to me?" The thing tilted its head, and for a moment its face flickered like a bad television signal. I caught a glimpse of something underneath, scales and yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. I don't remember, Bobby. I've been so scared. Please just help me get out of here." "The last time we talked," I said, backing my boat away from the island, "you told me you'd shut down my operation if it was the last thing you did. You called me a no-good swamp rat." The thing that wasn't Ray stopped smiling. "You also said you'd been getting reports of something strange in the swamp, something that had been killing livestock and scaring folks. You thought maybe I knew something about it." The fake Ray's face began to change, melting and shifting like hot wax. The voice that came out of its mouth wasn't Ray's anymore. It was deeper, older, like something that had been sleeping at the bottom of the swamp for a very long time. "A clever boy," it said. "Just like your grandmother. She was clever too for a while." I started paddling backward as fast as I could, but the thing was already moving. It dove into the water with barely a splash, and I could see its shadow beneath. My boat, keeping pace with me. "You can't run forever, Bobby Thibodeau," the voice called from underneath the water. "I know where your daughter lives. I know about the baby. Fresh blood makes me so much stronger." I made it back to my dock with my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Boudreaux was waiting for me, howling like the world was ending. Maybe it was. I ran inside and called Annie, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again, but nothing. Finally, I called her neighbor, Mrs. Hebert. "Oh, Bobby," she said, her voice worried. "Annie's been acting strange the past couple days. Says she keeps hearing voices calling her name. Yesterday I saw her, packing bags in her car. When I asked where she was going, she just smiled and said she had to come home, had to see her daddy." My hands started shaking. "Mrs. Hebert, if you see Annie, you keep her there, you hear me? Lock the doors if you have to. Don't let her leave the city." "Bobby, what's wrong? You're scaring me." But I'd already hung up, because I could hear something outside, a car engine getting closer. I looked out the window and saw headlights cutting through the darkness, coming down the dirt road that led to my shack. Only one person knew that road well enough to drive it at night. Annie was coming home, and I was pretty sure it wasn't really Annie behind the wheel. I grabbed Grammy's shotgun from above the fireplace and loaded it with the special shells she'd made years ago. Silver mixed with blessed salt, she'd told me, for when regular bullets won't do the job. The car stopped outside, and I heard a door slam. Footsteps on my porch, a gentle knock. "Daddy, it's me, Annie. I came home like you wanted, but I'd never asked her to come home. I'd told her to stay away." "Annie," I called through the door, "tell me about the last time we went fishing together." There was a long pause, too long. "Oh, Daddy, you know I don't like fishing, all those worms and slimy fish." The voice sounded like Annie, but something was off. Annie loved fishing, had since she was 5 years old. "What's the baby's name gonna be?" I asked. Another pause. We haven't decided yet." Wrong again. Annie had picked out names months ago. Marie for a girl, after Grammy. Robert for a boy, after me. I looked out the window and saw her standing on my porch. She looked exactly like my daughter. Same brown hair, same pretty face, same way of standing with one hand on her hip. But her eyes were wrong, too bright, like there was a fire burning behind them. "Daddy, please let me in. I'm tired from the drive." "Annie," I said, keeping the door between us, "sing me that song Grammy used to sing, the one about the mockingbird." The thing wearing my daughter's face tilted its head, just like the fake Ray had done. I don't remember the words." Annie had sung that song at Grammy's funeral. She knew every word by heart. "You're not my daughter," I said, raising the shotgun. The thing that looked like Annie smiled, and when it did, I saw teeth that were too sharp, too many. Its face started to change, features melting and shifting like clay in the sun. "Smart boy," it said in a voice that wasn't Annie's anymore, but not smart enough. It pressed its hand against my door, and I heard the wood start to crack. Whatever this thing was, it was strong, stronger than anything human. "Where's my daughter?" I shouted. "Safe," it laughed, "for now. But she won't stay that way if you keep fighting me. I can reach her any time I want. All it takes is one bad dream, one whispered word in her ear, and she'll drive her car right into the Mississippi River." The door splintered and fell inward. The thing stepped inside, and now I could see what it really looked like. It was tall, maybe 8 feet, covered in dark scales that looked wet even though they weren't. Its arms were too long, ending in claws that could tear through steel. And its face kept changing. 1 second it looked like Annie, the next like Grammy, then like people I'd never seen before. All the faces it had stolen over the years. "Your family has kept me trapped for over a century," it said, walking toward me. "Do you know what that's like? To be hungry for so long that the hunger becomes part of you, to feel families loving each other, caring for each other, and not be able to taste it?" I fired the shotgun. The silver shells hit it square in the chest, and it stumbled backward with a roar that sounded like breaking glass. Black blood poured from the wounds, but even as I watched, they started to heal. "That hurt," it said, sounding almost surprised. Your grandmother's little tricks still have some bite to them, but not enough. It lunged at me, claws reaching for my throat. I rolled away just in time, feeling the wind from its swipe. Its claws left deep gouges in the wall where my head had been. I scrambled toward the kitchen, grabbing items from Grammy's trunk as I went. Holy water, salt, a handful of iron nails she'd blessed at 7 different churches. The creature followed, knocking over furniture like it weighed nothing. You can't run forever, Bobby. And even if you could, what about Annie? What about that sweet little baby she's carrying? I can feel it growing, you know. New blood, pure blood. It calls to me. I threw the holy water at it, and where it hit, the creature's skin sizzled and smoked. It screamed and backed away, giving me enough time to make it to the back door. But as I reached for the handle, I heard something that stopped me cold. A baby, crying. I turned around, and there on my kitchen table was a car seat. Inside was a baby, maybe 6 months old, reaching up at me with tiny hands. It looked just like Annie had when she was little. Your grandson, the creature said, its voice soft now, almost gentle. Isn't he beautiful? He could grow up here in the swamp, learning the old ways like you did, like your grandmother did. All you have to do is stop fighting me. I knew it. Was a trick. Knew the baby wasn't real, but seeing it there, hearing it cry, made something break inside my chest. This was what I was fighting for, my family, my blood. He's not real, I whispered. Real enough, the creature said, real enough to hurt. It reached toward the baby with one clawed hand, and I couldn't help myself. I lunged forward to protect it, even knowing it was a trap. The creature's other hand caught me across the face, sending me flying into the wall. Stars exploded in my vision, and I tasted blood in my mouth. When my sight cleared, the baby was gone. The creature stood over me, smiling with too many teeth. You love so much, Bobby Thibodeau. Your daughter, your grandchild, that's what makes you weak. Love makes you predictable. It grabbed me by the throat and lifted me off the ground. Up close, I could smell its breath like rotting meat and swamp gas. But don't worry, it whispered. Soon you won't feel anything at all, and neither will they. That's when Boudreaux came through the broken door like a furry cannonball, sinking his teeth into the creature's leg. The thing roared and swatted at him, but Boudreaux held on, growling and shaking his head like he was trying to bring down a gator. The creature dropped me and spun around, trying to shake the dog loose. I used the chance to grab Grammy's map from the trunk. If I was going to die tonight, I was going to make sure this thing went back where it came from. Boudreaux, come! I shouted, running for the door. My dog let go and bounded after me. Together we ran into the night, heading for the one place I'd sworn I'd never go, the binding site, where this whole nightmare had started over 100 years ago. Behind us, the creature roared and gave chase. But I had one advantage. I knew these waters better than anything that had been locked away for a century. It was time to finish what my great-great-grandmother had started. The binding site was exactly where Grammy's map said it would be. A small patch of dry land in the deepest part of the swamp, surrounded by water so black it looked like oil. In the center stood the ruins of an old platform, the place where my family used to make moonshine over 100 years ago. But this wasn't just any moonshine platform. This was built on sacred ground that had been blessed and cursed and soaked with the blood of my ancestors. I could feel it the moment I stepped onto the island. The air was thick, heavy, like breathing through wet cotton. And underneath my feet, the ground hummed with old power that had been sleeping, waiting for someone with the right blood to wake it up. Boudreaux whined and pressed close to my legs. He could feel it too. It's okay, boy, I whispered, scratching behind his ears. We're going to end this tonight. I pulled out Grammy's map and studied it by moonlight. The symbols she'd drawn around the binding site made sense now. They weren't just decorations, they were instructions, a recipe for trapping something that shouldn't exist, but I was missing pieces. Important pieces. That's when I heard the splashing behind me. The creature had followed us here, just like I'd hoped it would. It rose from the black water like some nightmare from the bottom of the world, 8 feet tall and covered in scales that gleamed wet in the moonlight. "You led me right where I wanted to go," it said, grinning with those too many teeth. "Do you know what this place is, Bobby Thibodeau? This is where your great-great-grandmother made her mistake. She thought she could trap me. All she did was give me a place to grow stronger." I looked around the ruins and felt my heart sink. The creature was right. The binding hadn't weakened it. It had been feeding off this place for over a century, feeding off the fear and pain of my family, the weight of the secret we'd carried all these years. "But you brought me something better than fear," it continued, taking a step closer. "You brought me love, pure, desperate love for your family. That's what I've been hungry for all these years." It began to change again, its stolen face shifting. First it looked like Annie, then like the baby I'd seen in my kitchen, then like Grammy, smiling at me the way she used to when I was little. "Hello, Bobby," it said in Grammy's voice. "I've missed you so much." "You're not her," I said, but my voice cracked. Seeing Grammy's face, hearing her voice, it hurt worse than any physical pain. "Of course I am," it said gently. "I'm everyone you've ever loved, everyone you've ever lost. That's what makes me strong." It was right. I could feel my will weakening, the fight going out of me. What was the point? Even if I stopped it here, it would just find another way to hurt my family, another way to feed. My name is Jake Morrison, and I should have died 3 years ago. Instead, I'm standing here in the middle of nowhere, Oregon, watching the sun come up over trees that look like they're trying to touch the sky. The Cascade Mountains stretch out in front of me like God's own fence, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm not supposed to be here. But here I am anyway. My dog Rex sits next to me, his ears pointing up like little triangles. He's a German shepherd, big and smart, and he showed up at my door right after I tried to, right after the worst night of my life. Sometimes I think he knows things I don't. Like right now, he's staring at those trees like he can see. Something I can't. The air smells wrong. It should smell like pine trees and clean mountain air, but there's something else mixed in. Something that makes my nose wrinkle and my stomach feel sick. It's like when you smell metal, but worse. Like when you taste blood in your mouth after you bite your tongue. I'm here because of dreams. Stupid dreams that won't leave me alone. Dreams about my great-grandmother Sarah, who I barely remember. She was Chinook Indian, my mom told me once. Died when I was little. But in these dreams, she keeps pointing at this place. This exact spot where I'm standing now. The radio in my truck starts making noise. Static and crackling sounds, like when you try to tune in a station that's too far away. But we're not that far from civilization. Should be able to get something. Clear. Rex starts whining, low and quiet. His fur is standing up on his back, making him look bigger than he already is. Dogs know things, my dad used to say. They can sense stuff we can't. I walk closer to the stream that runs through here. The water looks clean and clear, babbling over rocks like water is supposed to do. But when I cup some in my hands and taste it, it's wrong. Metallic. Bitter. Like someone poured pennies into it. That's when I notice the trees. There are marks on them, scratches that go up and down the bark in straight lines. 3 lines, always 3, like someone dragged their fingernails down the wood. Or like claws. Big claws. The scratches look old, but fresh at the same time, if that makes sense. Which it doesn't, but nothing about this place makes sense. I'm a pilot, was a pilot, Air Force. I'm used to things making sense, having explanations. But this place feels like it's breaking all the rules. The birds stop singing, just like that. 1 second they're chirping and calling to each other. The next second, it's completely quiet. Even the stream seems to get quieter, like someone turned down the volume on the whole forest. Rex is really whining now, pressing against my leg like he wants to leave. His whole body is shaking. I've never seen him scared like this. That's when I hear it. Voices on the radio, but not English voices. The words sound old, like they're coming from somewhere far away, like they're coming from a long time ago. I walk back to the truck and turn up the volume. The voices get clearer, but I still can't understand them. They sound like singing or chanting, like the kind of thing you'd hear in a movie about Indians doing ceremonies. But here's the weird part. Even though I don't understand the words, something deep in my chest does. Like my blood knows what they're saying, even if my brain doesn't. The voices are saying something about binding, about keeping something locked up, about a guardian who failed. I turn off the radio, but the voices don't stop. They're coming from the forest now, echoing between the trees. Rex is barking, but it sounds muffled, like we're underwater. A deer walks out of the trees, just walks right up to us, which deer never do. Its eyes are wrong, though. Too dark, like someone filled them up with black paint. It looks at me for a long moment, then its head jerks to the side like someone yanked it on a string. Then it runs, crashes through the bushes like something is chasing it, but nothing is chasing it. I pull out my compass to check which direction we came from. The needle is spinning in circles, around and around, like it can't figure out where north is. Like something is messing with it. In my pocket, I feel something warm against my leg. I reach in and pull out the eagle feather my mom gave me before she died. Said it belonged to great-grandmother Sarah. I've carried it for 20 years, never thought much about it. Now it's glowing. Not bright, just a soft light like a candle. And it's warm, getting warmer by the second. Rex stops barking and sits down, staring at the feather. His tail wags once, just once, like he's saying, finally. The fog starts rolling in, even though it's morning and the sun is up. Thick, grey fog that smells like things I don't want to remember, like burning fuel, like the helicopter that went down with Tommy inside it, like the cologne Tommy wore, high karate, cheap stuff that smelled like a barbershop, but Tommy's been dead for 3 years. And this fog shouldn't smell like anything from my past. I look around and realize I can't see my truck anymore. Can't see the stream, can't see anything but grey fog and the shapes of trees that look like they're moving when I'm not looking directly at them. Rex growls, low and steady, not at the fog, at something in the fog, something that's moving toward us, something that knows we're here. I hold my breath and listen. The footsteps in the fog sound heavy, like boots on wet leaves. But they're moving wrong, too slow and too careful, like whoever. It doesn't want to be heard, but can't help making noise anyway. Rex moves closer to me. His body is tense, ready to fight or run. Smart dog. Then the footsteps stop. The fog starts to clear just a little bit, enough for me to see shapes. Tree shapes, rock shapes, but no person shapes, nothing that could have made those sounds. My hands are shaking. I haven't felt this scared since the helicopter went down, since Tommy started screaming about the sky eating us alive. I try not to think about that day. The doctors said thinking about it too much would make me sick. They gave me pills and told me to focus on getting better. But sometimes, like right now, the memories come back whether I want them or not. We were flying over this same area 3 years ago. Tommy and me doing a routine patrol. Everything was normal until the radio started acting up, making the same crackling sounds I heard today. Then Tommy pointed out the window and said the air looked wrong. Like it was bending, he said. Like someone was stirring it with a big spoon. I told him he was seeing things, but then I saw it too. The sky was moving in ways sky isn't supposed to move, twisting and folding like cloth. And through the twisted parts, I could see other things that weren't supposed to be there. Tommy started screaming, not just scared screaming, but the kind of screaming that comes from somewhere deep inside, where fear lives. He kept saying the sky was eating us, over and over. Then we crashed. I woke up in a hospital 2 weeks later. They told me Tommy was dead. They told me I had brain trauma and was imagining things. They gave me more pills and made me talk to doctors, who wrote everything down in little notebooks. But I remember what I saw. Even with all the pills and all the talking, I remember. Now I'm back in the same place, and Rex is acting like Tommy did. Scared of something I can't see. The eagle feather in my hand gets warmer. I look at it closer for the first time in years. Really look at it. There are tiny marks on it, little scratches that look like writing, but not English writing. Something. Older, the same kind of marks I saw on the trees. As I stare at the marks, something happens in my head, like a door opening in a dark room. I remember my great-grandmother Sarah, not just bits and pieces like before, real memories. Her sitting by my bed when I was little, telling me stories about the old days, about spirits that lived in the mountains, about guardians who kept the spirits from hurting people. She used to touch my forehead with this same feather and whisper words I didn't understand. Chinook words. She said our family had a job to do, a responsibility that went back generations. I was 5 years old. I thought she was just telling stories. The binding must hold, she used to say. The guardian must not fail. I never knew what she meant. My mum said great-grandmother was old and confused, that I shouldn't listen to her stories too much. But standing here now, with the feather warm in my hand and Rex shaking beside me, I'm starting to understand. The radio in my truck starts up again. This time, I can understand some of the words. Not because they're in English, but because something in my blood remembers them. They're talking about me, about my family, about something that was supposed to happen a long time ago but didn't, about a guardian who ran away. I walk back toward my truck, but it looks different than it did before. Older, like it's been sitting here for years instead of minutes. The paint is faded and there are dents I don't remember. Rex whines and won't follow me. He stays where he is, looking back and forth between me and the trees like he's trying to tell me something. That's when I notice my reflection in the truck's window. I look older too. My hair has grey in it that wasn't there this morning. My face had lines around the eyes that I've never seen before. I touch my face. It feels normal, but the reflection shows someone who's been here much longer than a few hours. The radio voices get louder. They're chanting now, all together, like a church choir. But the words they're saying make my skin crawl. They're saying my name, Jake Morrison, over and over, but they're also saying another name, Sarah Windwalker, my great-grandmother's name, and they're saying a third name, Danny Morrison, my son's name. Danny died 2 years ago. Car accident on an icy road. He was 17, just learned to drive. I taught him myself in this same truck. But hearing his name on that radio, spoken by voices that sound like they're coming from somewhere beyond death, makes my knees weak. I lean against the truck and try to breathe normally, try to think clearly. Rex starts barking, not at the radio, at something behind me. I turn around slowly. There's someone standing at the edge of the trees. A boy, tall and thin, wearing a jacket I recognize, Danny's jacket, the blue one he wore everywhere, but it can't be Danny. Danny is dead. I went to his funeral. I put dirt on his coffin with my own hands. The boy raises his hand and waves at me, just like Danny used to do when I picked him up from school. "Dad!" he calls out. His voice sounds exactly right, exactly like I remember. Rex stops barking and starts whimpering. He looks up at me like he's asking what we should do. I take a step toward the boy. He smiles Danny's smile and takes a step backward, deeper into the trees. "Come on, Dad," he says. "I've been waiting for you." The eagle feather in my hand is burning now. Actually burning. But it doesn't hurt. It feels like warmth spreading up my arm and into my chest, and somewhere in that warmth I can hear great-grandmother Sarah's voice, as clear as if she was standing right next to me. "The binding is breaking," she whispers. "The guardian must choose." I follow Danny into the trees. I know it's not really him. Dead people don't come back to wave at their fathers. But my feet move anyway, like they have a mind of their own. Rex walks beside me, but he's different now, calmer, like he's been waiting for this moment his whole life. The boy who looks like Danny stays just far enough ahead that I can see him, but can't catch up. Every few steps, he turns around and smiles. That same crooked smile Danny had when he was proud of something. We walk deeper into the forest. The trees get thicker and the light gets dimmer. I should feel lost, but somehow I know exactly where we're going. There's a cabin up ahead. It's small and old, made of logs that look like they've been here forever. Smoke comes from the chimney, which means someone lives here, but that's impossible. This is the middle of nowhere. No roads, no power lines, nothing. The boy who looks like Danny walks right up to the front door and goes inside. He doesn't open it. He just walks through it like it's not there. I stop walking. Rex sits down next to me and looks up. His eyes are different than they were this morning. Older, wiser, like he's been pretending to be a regular dog, and now he doesn't have to pretend anymore. "That's not Danny," I say out loud. My voice sounds strange in the quiet forest. Rex tilts his head like he's saying, "I know." But then why did I follow? Why am I standing here looking at a cabin that shouldn't exist? I walk up to the door and try the handle. It's unlocked. Inside, the cabin looks lived in. There's a fire burning in the fireplace, a pot of coffee on the stove, newspapers on the table. But the newspapers are old, really old. The dates say 1967. The headlines talk about the Vietnam War and hippies and things that happened before I was born. On the kitchen table, there's a photo. It's Danny, my Danny. But he's wearing clothes from the 1960s and standing next to a woman I don't recognize. An old Indian woman with long gray hair and kind eyes. Great-grandmother Sarah. I pick up the photo with shaking hands. On the back, someone wrote, "The Guardian and His Helper. Sarah Windwalker and Daniel Morrison, 1967. But that's impossible. Danny wasn't born until 1987. And great-grandmother Sarah died when I was little in the 1980s. I look around the cabin more carefully. There are more photos on the walls, dozens of them, all showing the same thing. Different men from different time periods, all standing next to Sarah Windwalker. The clothes change from photo to photo. 1920s suits, 1940s military uniforms, 1960s casual wear. But the men all look similar. They all have my nose, my eyes, my jawline. They're all Morrisons, all my relatives, all guardians. And in every photo, they look scared. On the mantel above the fireplace, there's something that makes my blood run cold. Danny's hockey equipment, his helmet, his stick, his jersey with number 23. The same equipment that's sitting in a box in my garage back home, except this equipment looks used. Recent. Like someone was just playing with it. I hear howling outside. Not one wolf. Many wolves. More wolves than should be in one place. Rex's ears perk up and he walks to the window. I follow him and look out. The forest is full of eyes. Yellow eyes, reflecting the firelight from inside the cabin. They're everywhere, between the trees, watching the cabin. Watching me. As I watch, the eyes start moving closer. Not running, just walking slowly and carefully. Like they have all the time in the world. The howling gets louder, but it doesn't sound like regular wolf howling. It sounds like voices, like people trying to howl like wolves, but not quite getting it right. Rex starts growling, but it's not an angry growl. It's a warning growl. Like he's trying to tell me something important. That's when I see him. Danny, the real Danny, standing in the middle of the pack of yellow eyes. But he's not alone. There are other people with him. Men I recognize from the photos on the wall. All. The Morrison Guardians who came before me. They're all standing together, and they're all looking at the cabin, looking at me. Danny raises his hand and waves, just like he did before. But this time, he doesn't smile. This time he looks sad. Behind him, the wolves start to change, not all at once, slowly. Their shapes get taller, their backs straighten, their front legs become arms. They're not just wolves, they're something in between, half wolf, half human, standing on two legs but covered in fur. with hands that end in claws and faces that are almost human but not quite, and they're big, much bigger than regular wolves. Some of them are 7 feet tall. The biggest one, the one in front, has Danny's face. Not like Danny. It is Danny's face, but on a wolf's body. Like someone cut off my son's head and put it on something else. The Danny wolf opens its mouth and speaks. Its voice is Danny's voice, but wrong, deeper, older. "Dad," it says, "come outside. We need to talk." Rex barks once, sharp and loud, the kind of bark that gets your attention. I look down at him and he's staring at the fireplace. Not at the fire, at something on the floor next to it, a shotgun, old but clean, like someone just finished cleaning it. Next to the shotgun there's a box of shells, but these aren't regular shells. They have symbols carved into them. The same symbols I saw on the trees and on the eagle feather. I pick up the shotgun. It feels familiar in my hands, even though I've never held this particular gun before. Outside, the Danny wolf speaks again. "I know you can hear me, Dad. I know. You see us. The time for hiding is over." The other wolf things start moving closer to the cabin. Their claws make scratching sounds on the ground. "Great-grandmother Sarah tried to prepare you," the Danny wolf continues, "but you wouldn't listen. You ran away from your responsibility. Now it's too late for the easy way." I load the shotgun with the carved shells. My hands know what to do, even though my brain doesn't understand. "We've been waiting for you to come back," Danny's voice says from outside. "Waiting for you to take your place as guardian, but you never came." The scratching sounds get louder. They're at the cabin now, right outside the walls. "So we had to come get you ourselves." Rex looks at me and barks once more. This time I understand what he's trying to tell me. It's time to fight. I hold the shotgun tight and walk to the cabin door. Through the window I can see them clearly now. 7 of them. 7 wolf things standing in a circle around the cabin, each one different. But all wrong in the same way. The Danny wolf is in front. Behind him, 6 others. Some look like the men from the photos on the wall. Others look like strangers, but with familiar eyes. Morrison eyes. Rex stays close to my leg. He's not scared anymore. He's ready. I open the door slowly. The cold air hits my face like a slap. It's much colder than it should be for this time of year, cold enough to see my breath. "Hello, Dad," the Danny wolf says. Its voice is my son's voice, but coming from that thing's mouth makes me feel sick. "You're not Danny," I say. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. The thing that has my son's face tilts its head. "I am and I'm not. I'm what's left of him." "What?" "The pack saved when he died." One of the other wolf things steps forward. This one looks like a man from the 1940s photos. Its face is human, but its body is all wolf. "I'm your grandfather, Jake," it says. "Thomas Morrison, I failed too." Another one moves closer. "I'm your great-uncle Robert. I ran away when I was supposed to stand guard. One by one, they tell me who they are. All Morrisons. All men who were supposed to be guardians. All men who failed. What happened to you?" I ask, even though I'm not sure I want to know. The Danny wolf answers. "When a Morrison guardian fails, he pays the price. We become part of the pack, forever." But Danny wasn't a guardian. He was just a kid. "Every Morrison man is born to be a guardian," the thing with my son's face says. "When you ran away from your duty, the responsibility passed to him. He died because you wouldn't take your place." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Danny died because of me, because I was too scared to face whatever this is. "The car accident," I whisper. "Not an accident," Danny wolf says. "The binding was getting weaker. The spirits were getting stronger. They needed a Morrison to join them. Since you wouldn't come, they took the next in line." I raise the shotgun. "Stay back." They don't move closer, but they don't back away either. "Those shells won't kill us, Dad. They'll hurt us, but we'll heal. We always heal." "Then why are you standing so far away?" The Danny wolf almost smiles. Almost. Because we're hoping you'll listen, hoping you'll understand. There's still a chance to make this right. Behind them, I can see more shapes moving in the trees, more eyes watching. The pack is bigger than just these 7. What do you want? I ask. Take your place, Danny Wolf says. Become the guardian you were born to be. Join us willingly, and the binding will hold for another generation. And if I don't, then we take you by force. And when your time comes, there will be no one left to take your place. The binding will break completely. The spirits will be free to hunt anyone they want. Rex growls low in his throat, not at the wolf things. At something behind me, I turn around. There's someone standing in the cabin doorway, a woman, old with long grey hair and dark skin. She's wearing clothes from a long time ago, but she looks solid, real. Great-grandmother Sarah. Jake, she says, and her voice sounds like wind through leaves. Don't listen to them, the Danny Wolf snarls. Sarah Windwalker, you should have stayed dead. I did die, she says calmly. But some things are more important than death. She walks past me, toward the wolf things. They back away from her, but not far. You told him lies, she says to the Danny Wolf. Danny didn't die because Jake ran away. Danny died because the old binding was meant to break. What are you talking about? I ask. Sarah turns to me. Her eyes are kind, just like in the photo. The Morrison men have been guardians for 7 generations. But we were never meant to guard forever. We were meant to guard until the right time came to set the spirits free. Free? The Danny Wolf sounds angry now. If the spirits are free, they'll kill everyone. Not all spirits want to kill, Sarah says. Some spirits just want to go home. They've been trapped here for over 100 years, Jake. Trapped by a binding that was supposed to be temporary. I look back and forth between my great-grandmother's ghost and the thing that has my son's face. I don't understand, I say. Sarah walks closer to me. Long ago, there was a war between the spirits and the people. The spirits were angry because their land was being taken away. The binding was created to stop the war, to keep the spirits in one place until a solution could be found. But no solution was ever found, I say, because the people forgot. They forgot about the spirits, forgot about the binding, forgot about the guardians. Only the Morrison family remembered. The Danny Wolf steps forward, and now the binding is breaking anyway. If Jake doesn't take his place as guardian, the spirits will be free, but they'll still be angry. They'll take revenge on everyone. Unless, Sarah says quietly, Jake chooses to break the binding the right way. What's the right way, I ask? A willing sacrifice. A guardian who chooses to join the spirits. Not as a prisoner, but as a bridge between their world and ours. The wolf things start moving closer again. The air gets colder. She's lying, the Danny Wolf says. She's trying to trick you into giving up, into dying. I'm not lying, Sarah says, but I am asking Jake to die. To die as a human so he can live as something more. Rex barks once, sharp and clear. He's looking at me, waiting for me to decide. The shotgun feels heavy in my hands. If I do what you're asking, I say to Sarah, what happens to Danny? What happens to all of them? They find peace, she says. They go home. The anger ends. And if I don't, the Danny Wolf answers, then the war starts again, and this time everyone loses. I look at my son's face on that wolf's body. Look at the men who came before me, all trapped in shapes that aren't their own. Look at my great-grandmother, who died decades ago but came back to help me understand. Look at Rex, who's been guiding me toward this moment since the day he showed up at my door. How do I know who to trust? I ask. Sarah smiles sadly. You don't. You have to choose with your heart, Jake, just like every Morrison guardian before you. The wind picks up, making the trees creak and groan. In the distance, I can hear more, howling. The rest of the pack is getting restless. Time is running out. I have to choose. I close my eyes and try to think. Sarah wants me to trust her. The Danny Wolf wants me to trust him. Both of them say they're trying to save people. Both of them want me to die. The difference is what happens after I die. I open my eyes and look at Rex. He's been with me for 3 years. Showed up right when I needed him most. Never left my side. Rex, I say quietly. What should I do? He looks at me for a long moment. Then he does something he's never done before. He talks. Follow your heart, Jake, he says in a voice that sounds like wind and water. Like your great-grandmother said, I'm not even surprised anymore. Nothing about this day has been normal. You're not really a dog, are you? I ask. I am and I'm not, he says, just like the Danny Wolf did. I'm what Sarah sent to protect you, to guide you when the time came. The wolf things are getting restless. They're pacing back and forth, making low, growling sounds. Time's up, Dad, the Danny Wolf says. Choose now. I look at Sarah. If I do what you're asking, will it really free them? All of them? Yes, she says. But you have to mean it. You have to choose freely, with love instead of fear. And if I'm wrong, if you're lying, then everyone dies anyway, she says simply. The binding will break on its own in a few more years, but if it breaks without a willing guardian, the spirits will be angry and lost. They'll hurt people because they won't know how else to express their pain. I think about Danny, my real Danny, not the thing wearing his face. He was always trying to help people, always volunteering for things, always standing up for kids who got picked on at school. What would he do? I know the answer before I finish asking the question. Okay, I say to Sarah, I'll do it. The Danny Wolf snarls. No! You don't understand what you're giving up. I understand enough, I say. I lower the shotgun. I understand that I've been running away my whole life. From responsibility, from family, from everything that mattered. I'm done running. Sarah nods. Thank you, Jake. What do I have to do? She points toward the trees. There's a place, a clearing with a frozen waterfall. That's where the original binding was made. That's where it has to end. Rex starts walking toward the trees. The wolf things move aside to let us pass, but they don't look happy about it. We walk through the forest in strange silence. No bird sounds, no wind, no normal forest noises, just our footsteps on the frozen ground. The clearing isn't far. When we get there, I can see why this place is special. The waterfall is completely frozen, but not like normal ice. It looks like glass, clear and smooth, and inside the ice I can see shapes, faces, dozens of them all looking up toward the sky. The spirits, Sarah says, trapped for over 100 years. At the base of the waterfall, there are rocks arranged in a circle. Old rocks, covered with the same symbols I've been seeing all day. Stand in the center, Sarah tells me. I walk into the circle. The rocks are warm under my feet, even though everything else is frozen. The wolf things form a circle around the rocks, but they stay back. The Danny Wolf is directly in front of me. Last chance, Dad, it says. Join us instead. Become a guardian like you were supposed to. Keep the old ways alive. The old ways are broken, I say. They've been broken for a long time. Rex sits down next to me. I'll stay with you, he says, until the end. What happens now? I ask Sarah. Now you choose to let go, she says. Let go of fear. Let go of anger. Let go of guilt. Let go of everything that keeps you tied to being human. I think about Danny, about how guilty I've felt since he died, about how I blame myself for everything bad that happened. I think about Tommy screaming in the helicopter, about how I couldn't save him. I think about all the times I ran away when things got hard. I'm sorry, I say to the Danny Wolf. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you needed. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to face this sooner. The thing with my son's face looks at me for a long moment, then slowly its expression changes. The anger fades, it looks sad instead. I forgive you, Dad, it says, and for a second it sounds exactly like my real son. That's when the cold hits me. Not outside, cold, inside, cold. like ice water in my veins, like winter in my bones. I fall to my knees in the circle of rocks. Rex presses against my side, keeping me warm. "It's starting," Sarah says. "Don't fight it, let it happen." The cold spreads through my whole body, my hands, my arms, my chest. But it doesn't hurt. It feels like going to sleep after being awake. For too long, the frozen waterfall starts to crack, not breaking apart, just small cracks like someone drawing lines on the ice. And through the cracks, light starts to shine. Warm, golden light. The faces inside the ice begin to move. "They're waking up," Rex says softly. The wolf things around the circle start to change too. Their fur falls away, their claws shrink, their faces become human again. I can see my grandfather, my great-uncle, all the Morrison men who came before me. They look peaceful now, relieved. The Danny wolf is changing too. The wolf parts fade away, leaving just Danny, my son, looking exactly like he did when he was alive. "Thanks, Dad," he says. "I can go home now." The cold reaches my heart. I can barely breathe, but I'm not scared anymore. "What happens to me?" I whisper. Sarah kneels down next to me. "You become the bridge, part human, part spirit. You help lost souls find their way home. You keep the peace between the two worlds." "For how long?" "As long as you're needed." Rex licks my face one last time. "I have to go too," he says. "My job was to get you here. Sarah is calling me home." He starts to fade, becoming transparent like smoke. "Thank you," I tell him, "for everything." "Thank you for letting me help," he says, and then he's gone. The waterfall cracks completely open. The light pours out like liquid sunshine, and all the trapped spirits flow out with it. They look like people made of light, floating upward toward the sky. Danny walks over to me. He looks solid now, real. "I love you, Dad," he says. "I love you too," I manage to say. He smiles his crooked smile one last time, then turns into light, and floats away with the others. All the Morrison men do the same. One by one, they turn into light and rise toward the sky. Finally, free. Sarah is the last one left. "Are you ready?" she asks. I nod. I can't speak anymore. The cold has reached my throat. She touches my forehead with her hand. It feels warm and soft. "Welcome to the family business," she says with a smile. Then the world goes white. I wake up, but not the way you wake up from sleeping. I wake up the way you wake up from being someone else. I'm still in the circle of rocks, but everything looks different, brighter, like someone cleaned a dirty window and now I can see clearly for the first time. The waterfall isn't frozen anymore. It flows normally, making the sound water is supposed to make. The trapped spirits are gone. The wolf things are gone. Even Sarah is gone. But I'm not alone. There are people in the forest, real people. A search team with flashlights and radios, in calling my name. "Jake Morrison, can you hear us?" I try to answer, but no sound comes out. I look down at my hands. They look normal, but when I hold them up to the light, I can see through them just a little bit. I'm not completely human anymore, but I'm not completely spirit either. I'm something in between. One of the search team members finds me, a young woman with a park ranger uniform. "Sir? Sir, are you okay?" she says, kneeling down next to me. I try to speak again. This time, words don't come out, but they sound far away. "I'm fine," I say, "just resting." She looks confused. "We've been looking for you for 3 days. Your truck was found abandoned. Are you hurt?" 3 days, it felt like hours. "No," I say, "I'm not hurt." She helps me stand up. I feel light, like I weigh almost nothing. "Can you walk?" she asks. I nod and take a step, then another. Walking feels different now, easier, like my feet barely touch the ground. As we walk back through the forest toward the rescue team, I notice things I couldn't see before. Spirits everywhere. Not trapped ones like in the waterfall. Free ones, happy ones. They float between the trees like gentle lights going about their business. Most of them are animals that died long ago. Some are people. They all look at me as we pass. Some nod like they're saying hello. Others just watch. I'm the bridge now. I can see both worlds. The ranger keeps talking, but I'm only half listening. I'm watching a spirit wolf playing with spirit deer near a stream. They're having fun. No anger, no fear, no pain. This is what Sarah meant. This is what peace looks like. When we reach the other searchers, they gather around me with blankets and hot coffee. They want to know where I've been, what happened, if I need medical attention. I tell them I got lost and found shelter in an old cabin, that I waited for the weather to clear. Simple answers that they can understand and write in their reports. They don't need to know the truth. They couldn't handle it anyway. One of the searchers is a doctor. She checks my pulse and my eyes and asks me questions about my health. You seem fine, she says, but she looks puzzled. Better than fine, actually. Your heart rate is perfect. Your breathing is perfect. It's like you just woke up from the best sleep of your life. I smile. I feel good. And I do. For the first time in years, I feel at peace. They drive me back to town in their rescue truck. I sit in the back and watch. The forest go by through the window. I can see spirits everywhere now. In the trees, by the rivers, in the meadows. All of them free and happy. The binding is broken, but not in a bad way, in the right way. When we get to town, there are reporters waiting. The missing pilot story made the local news. They want to interview me, take pictures, ask questions, answer a few questions politely, then go home. My house looks the same, but it feels different, like it belongs to someone I used to be. I go to Danny's room and sit on his bed. His hockey posters are still on the walls. His trophies are still on the shelves, but now I can see him too. He's sitting at his desk reading a book. Not a ghost, not a spirit trapped in a wolf's body. Just Danny, the way he was when he was alive. "Hey, Dad," he says, looking up from his book. "Hey, kiddo," I say. "You did good," he says. "I'm proud of you." "Are you happy?" I ask. He nods. "I'm free. We all are. And now you get to help other people find their way home too." "How does it work?" "You'll figure it out," he says. "When someone dies and gets lost between the worlds, you'll know. You'll feel it, and you'll help them find the light." I reach out to touch his face, but my hand passes through him. He's there, but not there. Real, but not solid. "Will I see you again?" I ask. "Whenever you need to," he says. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm just free to go wherever I want now." He stands up and walks to his window. Outside, the sun is setting. "I have to go now," he says, "but I'll be back." "Where are you going?" "To play hockey with some kids who died too young," he says with a grin. "There's a whole team of us now." He waves goodbye and fades away like morning. Mist. I sit in his room for a while, feeling more peaceful than I have in years. Over the next few weeks, my new life begins. To everyone else, I'm just Jake Morrison, the pilot who got lost in the woods and found his way home. I go to the grocery store. I pay my bills. I watch TV, but I also help lost spirits. It happens exactly like Danny said it would. I feel it when someone dies and can't find their way to the light. A pull in my chest, like someone tugging on a string connected to my heart. The first one is an old man who died in a car accident. He's standing by the side of the road where it happened, confused and scared. He doesn't understand that he's dead. I walk up to him and explain, gently. I show him the light that's always there. Just hard to see sometimes when you're scared. He thanks me and walks into the light, smiling. It feels good, like I'm doing what I was meant to do. Sometimes the spirits are people. Sometimes they're animals. Sometimes they're children who died too young like Danny did. I help them all. The forest, where it all happened, becomes my special place. I go there often just to sit and listen to the peace. The waterfall flows freely now, making music instead of silence. Birds sing in the trees. Deer drink from the stream without fear. Rex visits me there sometimes. He's still a dog, but now he can be other things too. Sometimes he's a wolf. Sometimes he's just a feeling of warmth and protection. Any regrets? He asks me one day as we sit by the water. I think about it. I'm not fully human anymore. I can't have a normal life. I'll never get married again, never have other children, never grow old and die like regular people do. But I can see Danny whenever I want. I can help lost souls find peace. I can be the bridge between two worlds that need each other. No, I tell Rex. No regrets. He wags his tail and disappears into the trees. I sit by the waterfall until the sun goes down, listening to the sound of water flowing free. In the distance I can hear wolves howling, but it's not scary anymore. It's just them saying hello, saying welcome home. The screaming silence is over. Now there's just peace. My name is Vincent McCready, but everyone calls me Vince. I'm 41 years old, and I came to this desert to die. I know that sounds crazy, but let me explain. 3 months ago, I lost my job at the construction company. Not because I was bad at it, but because I kept seeing things. A little Korean boy, maybe 8 years old, standing at construction sites. Always watching me, always silent. The boy's name was Sung Ho. I killed him in Korea back in 1951. It was an accident, but that doesn't make it hurt less. He looked exactly like my son Michael, who died of leukemia when he was 8. Same dark hair, same serious eyes, same way of holding his head when he was thinking. After I started seeing Sung Ho everywhere, I knew I was losing my mind. The doctor said it was stress. The VA said it was normal for veterans, but I knew better. I was being punished, so I packed my truck with enough food for a week and drove to Utah. I'd heard about this place from other veterans, an old uranium processing plant near the Navajo Nation border. They said the radiation was still strong. There, strong enough to kill a man in a few days if he stayed close to the source. I figured it was a fair trade. I'd caused enough death in my life. Time to balance the books. The drive took 2 days. As I got closer to the desert, the landscape got stranger. The rocks were the wrong color, too red, too bright, like they were glowing from inside. The few plants I saw looked sick, twisted into shapes that didn't seem natural. My Geiger counter started clicking when I was still 10 miles away. I'd bought the counter at a military surplus store in Salt Lake City. The guy who sold it to me said it was from the 1950s, left over from atomic testing. Still works good, he told me with a grin that showed too many missing teeth. Just don't let it click too fast, if you know what I mean. I knew what he meant. The clicking got faster as I drove deeper into the desert. By the time I saw the processing plant, it sounded like a machine gun. The plant was bigger than I'd expected. 3 concrete buildings connected by rusted walkways, surrounded by a fence that had more holes than wire. Warning signs covered everything. Radiation symbols, skull and crossbones, words in English and what looked like Navajo. Most of the signs were so faded I could barely read them. I parked my truck near the main building and got out. The heat hit me like a hammer. It was October, but the desert sun felt like July in Georgia. The air tasted like metal and dust. That's when I found the toy. It was sitting on my truck's hood, right where I'd put my gear. A little plastic soldier, painted in the colors of the Korean War. The kind of cheap toy that American soldiers used to give to local kids. The same kind of toy I'd given to Sung Ho right before I accidentally shot him. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was warm, like someone had been holding it, but there was nobody around for miles. I'd seen the empty roads stretching behind me, nothing but sand and dead bushes. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed off the concrete walls. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just the wind and the clicking of my Geiger counter. I should have gotten back in my truck right then, should have driven away and found another way to die, but I was tired of running from ghosts. If Sung-Ho wanted to play games, I'd play along. I grabbed my backpack and sleeping bag from the truck. The Geiger counter was clicking so fast now, it almost sounded like one long buzz. According to the little screen, I was getting about 50 times the normal radiation dose just standing here. Perfect. I walked toward the main building. The door was heavy steel, painted yellow with black radiation symbols. Someone had spray painted, "Danger, do not enter," in big red letters. Below that, in smaller writing, someone else had added, "The dead don't rest here." I turned the handle. The door opened with a screech that made my teeth hurt. Inside, the building was dark and cool. My flashlight beam showed concrete walls covered in pipes and gauges. Everything was rusted and broken, like it had been abandoned for decades. The floor was covered in a fine layer of dust that glowed faintly in my flashlight beam. The Geiger counter was going crazy now. The clicking was so fast it hurt my ears. I found a spot near what looked like an old control room and spread out my sleeping bag. Through the cracked window, I could see the sun setting behind the mountains. The sky was the color of blood. As darkness fell, I ate a can of beans and thought about Michael. About how brave he'd been during the cancer treatments, about how he'd never complained, even when the pain was bad, about how he'd asked me, right before he died, if I thought there was really a heaven. I'd told him yes, of course there was. I'd lied to my dying son because the truth, that I didn't know that I was scared too, would have hurt him more. Now, sitting in this poisoned place, I wondered if Michael was waiting for me somewhere, if Sung-Ho was too. If death would finally let me say the things I'd never had the chance to say. The Geiger counter's clicking had changed. It was slower now, more regular, almost like a heartbeat. Click, click, click. I put my hand on my chest. My heart was beating at exactly the same rhythm. That should have scared me. Instead, it felt like a sign, like this place was already becoming part of me, or I was becoming part of it. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but as I drifted off, I could swear I heard something else mixed in with the Geiger counter's clicking. Footsteps, small ones like a child would make, getting closer. I woke up to the sound of a car engine. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was. Then the Geiger counter's clicking brought it all back. The desert, the uranium plant, my plan to die here. Sunlight was coming through the broken windows. My watch said 7:30 a.m. I'd slept better than I had in months, which was strange considering. I was lying on a concrete floor in a radioactive building. The car engine got louder, then stopped. A door slammed. I grabbed my rifle and moved to the window. Outside, a white SUV was parked next to my truck. A woman was getting out, pulling a large backpack from the passenger seat. She looked to be in her 30s, with brown hair pulled back. In a ponytail, she wore jeans and a long-sleeved shirt, like she was going camping. She also had a Geiger counter clipped to her belt. "Hello," she called out. "Is someone here? I saw the truck." I stayed quiet and watched. She walked around the building, looking at the warning signs. When she got to the door I'd used, she stopped and pulled out a small notebook. She wrote something down, then checked her Geiger counter. I decided to take a chance. I put down my rifle and walked outside. "Morning," I said. She spun around, startled. For a second, she looked scared. Then she saw I wasn't holding a weapon and relaxed a little. "Oh, thank God," she said. "I thought I was going crazy. I'm Dr. Margaret Thorne." Vince McCready. I nodded toward her equipment. "You here for the radiation too?" She looked confused. "The radiation? No, I'm an anthropologist. I'm studying Navajo cultural sites in this area." She paused. "Are you here for research?" I almost laughed. Research. That was one way to put it. "Something like that," I said. She pulled out a small leather book from her backpack. It looked old, with pages that were yellow around the edges. "This might sound strange," she said, "but have you seen anything unusual here? Any signs of, I don't know, recent activity?" "What kind of activity?" She opened the book and showed me a page covered in handwriting. It was a girl's handwriting with little hearts dotting the eyes. "This is my sister Sarah's diary," she said. "She disappeared 6 months ago while doing research near here. The police think she got lost in the desert, but—" She trailed off. But what? Some of the things she wrote in here, right before she vanished, they don't make sense. She was writing about old Navajo stories, legends about creatures that wear stolen faces. She thought she'd found something important. The way she said "stolen faces" made my skin crawl. I looked around the empty desert. Nothing but sand and rocks and that horrible red sky. "What kind of creatures?" I asked. Before she could answer, another car appeared on the horizon. This one was moving fast, kicking up a cloud of dust. As it got closer, I could see it was an old pickup truck painted in faded red and white. The truck stopped next to our vehicles. An older Native American man got out. He was maybe 60, with long gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He looked at both of us, then at the uranium plant. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I'm Dr. Thorne," Margaret said, walking toward him. "I'm researching cultural sites for the university. Are you from the local community?" The man looked at her for a long moment. "My name is Joseph Yazzie, and yes, this place is important to my people. That's why you need to leave." "Mr. Yazzie, I'm trying to find my sister. She was researching Navajo traditions when she disappeared. Maybe you knew her, Sarah Thorne." Something changed in Joseph's face. He looked older suddenly and very tired. "I knew Sarah," he said. "She asked too many questions about things that should stay buried." "What do you mean?" Margaret's voice got higher. "Do you know what happened to her?" Joseph looked at the uranium, plant, then back at us. "Some stories aren't meant to be told. Some things aren't meant to be found." That's when I heard it again. The footsteps from last night, small ones like a child walking on concrete. They seemed to be coming from inside. The main building. All three of us turned toward the sound. "Did you hear that?" Margaret whispered. Joseph nodded grimly. "It's starting again." "What's starting?" I asked. Before anyone could answer, a fourth vehicle appeared. This one was military, a green Jeep with government plates. It pulled up next. To the other cars, and a man in uniform got out. He was about my age, with short grey hair and the kind of straight posture that screamed career military. The name tag on his uniform said Morrison. "Colonel Morrison, U.S. Army," he said, walking toward us. "I'm going to have to ask all of you to leave this area immediately." "On whose authority?" Margaret asked. "This facility is still classified as a hazardous site," Morrison said. "Civilian access is prohibited." "Then why isn't it properly secured?" I asked. "The fence is full of holes." Morrison's jaw tightened. "That's not your concern, Mr. McCready. And I think it is my concern, seeing as how I spent the night breathing radioactive dust." For just a second, Morrison looked surprised, like he hadn't expected anyone to actually stay here overnight. "You slept here?" he asked. "In the main building. My Geiger counter says I'm getting about 50 times normal radiation levels." Joseph made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it didn't sound happy. 50 times normal, he repeated. "That's nothing compared to what's buried deeper." "What's buried deeper?" Margaret asked. Joseph looked at Morrison, and I saw something pass between them, some kind of recognition or shared knowledge. "Tell them, Colonel," Joseph said quietly. "Tell them what your people did here in the 1950s. Morrison's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The experiments, the workers who got sick, the things that woke up because of what you pumped into the ground." The footsteps inside the building got louder. Now they sounded like someone running. Margaret grabbed my arm. "There's someone in there." "Sarah?" she called out. "Sarah, is that you?" The footsteps stopped. Then from inside the building we heard a voice. It was small and scared like a child's voice. "Help me," it said. "Please, help me." But the voice was speaking Korean. I knew that voice. I'd heard it in my dreams for 12 years. It was Sung-ho, the boy I'd killed in Korea. My hands started shaking. The Geiger counter on my belt was clicking faster now, matching my heartbeat. Again, Margaret looked at me. What did it say? It said, "Help me," I whispered. Joseph stepped back from the building. "We need to leave, now." "But Sarah," Margaret started. "Your sister isn't in there," Joseph said. "Not anymore." The voice came again, still speaking Korean. This time it was closer, like whoever was speaking had moved to just inside the door. Morrison pulled out a radio. "Base, this is Morrison. I need that cleanup crew here immediately." "What cleanup crew?" I asked. He ignored me and spoke into the radio again. "And bring the containment equipment. It's happening again." "Again?" Margaret said. "What's happening again?" That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My coffee from this morning, sitting on the hood of my truck, had changed color. Instead of brown, it was now a dull copper color. And it smelled wrong, like metal and something rotting. The Geiger counter's clicking was getting faster. We were all staring at the building now, waiting for something to happen. "There's something you all need to know," Joseph said quietly. "About this place, about what they really did here." He looked at each of us, his face full of sadness. "They didn't just process uranium here. They used it for experiments. On my people, on Navajo workers who needed jobs and trusted the government to keep them safe." Morrison started to object, but Joseph held up his hand. "The first test subject was my grandson, Tommy. He was 22 years old. They told him it was medicine, that it would make him strong. Instead, it killed him. But not right away." The voice from the building called out again. This time it sounded different, older, and it was speaking English. "Grandpa Joe," it said. "Grandpa Joe, why did you let them hurt me?" Joseph closed his eyes. "Because something came back with him when he died. Something that learned how to wear." His face, the voice calling for Grandpa Joe, stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Joseph was staring at the building with tears in his eyes. "Tommy died 3 months after the experiment started, but something wearing his face came to visit me that night. It knew things only. Tommy would know. It remembered fishing trips we took when he was little. It remembered his favorite songs." "That's impossible," Morrison said, but his voice shook. "Is it?" Joseph looked at him. "Your people pumped radioactive waste into sacred ground. You poisoned a burial site that was old when my great-great-grandfather was young. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" Margaret was still holding Sarah's diary. "My sister wrote about this. She said she found stories about creatures that steal memories from the dead." "Not just memories," Joseph said quietly. "Everything. Every thought. Every feeling. Every moment of their lives. It collects them like books in a library." The door to the building creaked open. We all stepped back. Nobody wanted to see what was coming out, but we couldn't look away either. A small figure appeared in the doorway. At first glance, it looked like a boy, maybe 8 years old. He had dark hair and serious eyes. He was wearing the kind of simple clothes that poor kids wore in Korea during the war. It was Sung-ho, exactly as I remembered him. "Vince," the boy said in perfect English, "you came back to me." My legs almost gave out. This wasn't possible. Sung-ho had died 12 years ago, thousands of miles away. I'd watched him die. I'd held his small body while he bled out in the mud. "You're not real," I whispered. The boy smiled. It was Sung-ho's smile, but wrong somehow. Too wide, too knowing. "I'm as real as your guilt," he said. "As real as the cancer that ate your son's bones. As real as the radiation eating your bones right now." He took a step toward us. As he moved, I saw something that made me sick. His shadow was wrong. Instead of a child's shadow, it was huge and twisted with too many arms and legs that bent in directions that shouldn't be possible. "How do you know about Michael?" I asked. "I know everything you know, Vince. I felt your memories the moment you set foot on this ground. I felt your pain when you held Michael in the hospital. I felt your fear when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. Margaret grabbed my arm. That's how it works, she whispered. Sarah wrote about this. It doesn't just look like its victims. It becomes them. It takes everything they were. The thing wearing Sung-ho's face turned to her. Hello, Margaret. Your sister says hello too. Margaret's face went white. Where is she? Where's Sarah? She's right here. The creature's voice changed, becoming higher, more feminine. When it spoke again, it sounded exactly like Margaret from the recordings I'd heard her make. Maggie. Maggie, is that really you? I've been trapped here for so long. It hurts, Maggie, it hurts so much. Margaret started crying. Sarah. Oh God, Sarah. We're going to get you out of here. You can't save her, Joseph said sadly. She's gone. Dr. Thorne, what's left is just echoes. The creature laughed with Sarah's voice. Poor Joseph, still trying to protect people, still trying to make up for feeding us your grandson. You were going to kill my other grandchildren, Joseph said. I had to choose, and you chose to let strangers die instead of family. Very practical, very human. Morrison had been backing away slowly. Now he pulled out his radio again. Base, we have a code red situation. Repeat, code red. I need the containment team and the flame units. The creature turned to him, and now it was wearing Tommy's face, a young Navajo man with kind eyes and strong features. Hello, Colonel Morrison. Remember me? I'm the one you injected with liquid uranium. I'm the one you told it was medicine. Morrison was shaking now. The experiments were necessary. We needed to understand the effects of radiation exposure on human subjects. Necessary, the creature repeated, like it was necessary to tell my family I died in an industrial accident, like it was necessary to bury the medical records. We were trying to protect national security. You were trying to see what would happen if you turned people into living radiation detectors, the creature said. And you succeeded. I can feel every radioactive particle in this desert. I can taste the poison in your bones, Colonel. You've been exposed too, haven't you? All those visits to check on your experiment. Morrison's face went grey. He looked down at his hands, and I could see they were shaking. How long do you think you have? The creature asked. 6 months? A year? The cancer is already growing. I can smell it. That's when I started feeling it. The death echo syndrome that Margaret had read about in Sarah's diary. Suddenly I wasn't standing in the desert anymore. I was in a medical facility, strapped to a table. Someone was injecting something into my arm. It burned like fire. And I knew I was going to die, but it wasn't my memory, it was Tommy's. I was experiencing his death from the inside. Stop it, I gasped. The creature smiled with Tommy's face. You wanted to experience death, Vince? Here it is, all of it. Every person who died from radiation in this place. The memories hit me one after another. A woman named Maria, who cleaned the facility at night, not knowing the dust she swept was killing her. A security guard who worked here for 5 years and died of leukemia. A scientist who developed throat cancer from breathing contaminated air. Each death felt completely real. I experienced their fear, their pain, their confusion as their bodies betrayed them. This is what you wanted, isn't it? The creature asked. To understand death? To be punished for your crimes? I fell to my knees. The memories were too much. Dozens of deaths, all connected to this place, all feeding into this thing that wore stolen faces. Margaret was on the ground too, experiencing her own flood of memories. I could hear her crying as she lived through Sarah's final moments, being hunted through the desert, being caught, being absorbed into something vast and hungry. Only Joseph was still standing. He looked old and tired, but not surprised. How long has this been going on? I managed to ask. 6 months, he said. Ever since Sarah arrived and started asking questions about our old stories, her research woke something up, something that had been sleeping in the uranium deposits deep underground. Sleeping? This place was sacred long before the government built their facility here. There are things buried in the desert that are older than memory. The radiation didn't create the monster, it just made it stronger. The creature was changing now. Sung-Ho's face melted away, replaced by Sarah's, then Tommy's, then faces I didn't recognize, dozens of them, all the people it had killed and absorbed. "We are many," it said with all their voices at once. "We are the library of the dead. Every story, every memory, every moment of pain and fear. We grow with each new edition." Morrison's radio crackled. "Colonel, ETA, 10 minutes on containment team." The creature laughed. 10 minutes, just enough time for dessert. It started walking toward us. With each step, its shadow grew larger and more twisted. The Geiger counter on my belt was clicking. So fast it sounded like a buzzsaw. "There's something else," Joseph said quietly. "Something I didn't tell you. The creature can only exist in one time at once. If you can split its attention across multiple timelines." "What are you talking about?" Margaret asked. "The uranium doesn't just make things radioactive. It tears holes in time. That's why you're experiencing other people's memories. Past and present are bleeding together." The creature was getting closer. I could see now that it wasn't really human at all. It was something else, wearing human shapes like masks. Underneath, it was dark and writhing, made of shadows and radiation and accumulated death. "There's a heart," Joseph said urgently. "Deep in the mines. A massive uranium ore that looks like a human heart. It's what keeps the creature alive. If you can destroy it..." "How do we get to it?" I asked. "Through the main building, down the old mine shaft. But one of us has to stay here and distract it." The creature was only 20 feet away now. I could feel the heat coming off it like standing near a fire. "I'll stay," Joseph said. "This is my fault. I should have stopped the experiments when I had the chance." "It's not your fault," Margaret said. "You were trying to protect your family." "I was a coward," Joseph replied, "but maybe I can make up for it now." He started walking toward the creature. As he got closer, it stopped advancing and tilted its head, like it was listening to something. "Hello, grandson," Joseph said to the thing wearing Tommy's face. "I'm sorry I failed you, Grandpa," the creature said in Tommy's voice, but now it sounded sad instead of angry. "Why didn't you save me?" "Because I was scared," Joseph admitted. "Because I chose my living family over justice for the dead. I've regretted it every day since." The creature stared at him. For a moment its shape seemed less solid, like it was struggling to maintain its form. "Run," Joseph whispered to us. "Now, while it's distracted." We ran. We ran into the main building. As Joseph's voice echoed behind us, I could hear him talking to the creature, his words getting quieter as we got farther away. "This way," Margaret said, pulling out a flashlight. Sarah's diary mentioned a shaft in the back of the building. Morrison followed us, but he was moving slowly. His face was pale and sweaty. The radiation was getting to him worse than the rest of us. "How much time do we have?" I asked. "Not long," he said. "The containment team will seal this whole area when they get here. If we're still down in the mines..." He didn't finish the sentence, but we all knew what he meant. "They'd bury us alive to keep this secret safe." The building was darker inside than it had been yesterday. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, showing broken equipment and walls covered in strange stains. The Geiger counters were going crazy, now clicking so fast they sounded like angry insects. We found the shaft at the back of the building. It was just a hole in the floor with a rusty ladder leading down into blackness. A sign next to it said, "Authorized personnel only," in faded letters. "The experiments happened down there?" Margaret asked. Morrison nodded. "Level B3. We called it the Deep Lab. That's where we tested the effects of concentrated uranium exposure on living subjects." "Living subjects," I repeated. "You mean people?" "Volunteers," Morrison said, but his voice was weak. "They were paid volunteers." Tommy Yazzie was 22 years old, Margaret said, reading from Sarah's diary. He needed money to help his family. You told him it was safe. Morrison looked away. We didn't know what would happen. It was experimental. You knew enough to do it underground, I said. You knew enough to keep it secret. Behind us we heard a scream, Joseph's scream, then silence. We need to move, Morrison said. I went down the ladder first. Each rung was slippery with moisture that glowed faintly in the dark. 20 feet down, I reached a concrete floor. The air down here was thick and hard to breathe. It tasted like metal and decay. Margaret came down next, then Morrison. Our flashlights showed a long hallway with doors on both sides. Most of the doors were open, revealing small rooms with medical equipment, examining tables, IV stands, machines I didn't recognize. Room B37, Margaret said, reading from the diary. That's where they did the main experiments. We walked down the hallway. Our footsteps echoed strangely, like the sound was bouncing off things we couldn't see. The Geiger counters were so loud now, we had to shout to hear each other. We found room B37 halfway down the hallway. The door was closed but not locked. Inside, the room was bigger than the others. There were 3 examining tables with restraint straps, cabinets full of medical supplies, and in the center of the room, a large glass container filled with what looked like glowing liquid uranium, Morrison said quietly. We injected it directly into the subjects to see how much they could absorb before they died, Margaret finished. Before they changed, Morrison corrected. Tommy Yazzie didn't die right away. He lived for 3 months after the first injection, but he wasn't human anymore. He could see things, know things that should have been impossible. I walked over to one of the examining tables. The restraint straps were torn, like someone with incredible strength had broken free. He escaped? I asked. On the last day, Morrison said. We were preparing to end the experiment. But Tommy broke out of his restraints. He killed 3 technicians and a doctor before we could stop him. How did you stop him? Morrison was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. We didn't. He just left. Walked out into the desert. We found his body 3 days later, but when we went to collect it, he stopped. What? Margaret asked. It wasn't Tommy anymore. It was something else wearing his face, and it was still alive. That explained a lot. The creature upstairs wasn't just one person. It was Tommy, transformed by radiation into something that could absorb other people's lives. Where's the uranium? Art Joseph mentioned? I asked. Morrison pointed to another door at the far end of the room. Deeper. Level B4. That's where we stored the concentrated ore. We went through the door and found another ladder. This one led down into what felt like the center of the earth. The air got hotter as we descended, and the radiation levels were so high our Geiger counters started to malfunction. Level B4 was different from the medical levels above. It was natural cave carved out of rock. The walls glowed with a soft green light that hurt to look at directly, and the sound. There was a sound like breathing, slow and deep, coming from somewhere ahead of us. Jesus, I whispered. We followed. The sound through winding passages. The rock around us was warm to the touch, and I could feel energy pulsing through it like blood through veins. That's when we found them, the cocoons. They hung from the ceiling like giant chrysalises, each one made of what looked like human skin. There were dozens of them, all glowing faintly with that same green light, and inside each one I could see the shape of a person. Sarah, Margaret breathed. One of the cocoons was smaller than the others, and through its translucent wall, we could see a woman with brown hair. She looked like Margaret, but younger. Margaret reached toward it, but Morrison grabbed her arm. Don't, he said. They're not alive anymore. Not really. The creature is using them to store memories and experiences. If you touch one. What? You'll experience everything they did, every moment of their absorption. It could drive you insane. But Margaret wasn't listening. She touched the cocoon gently, and immediately her eyes rolled back in her head. She started shaking, making small sounds of pain. I grabbed her shoulders. "Margaret, come back." She blinked and looked at me. Tears were streaming down her face. "She's still conscious in there," she whispered. "Sarah's still aware. She's been trapped for 6 months, feeling everything the creature feels, knowing everything it knows. She's been trying to fight it, trying to warn people. Can we get her out? Not while the heart is still beating." The heart. We could hear it now, a slow, rhythmic pulsing that seemed to come from everywhere at once. We followed the sound deeper, into the caves, until we reached a large chamber. In the center of the chamber was the most horrible thing I'd ever seen. It was shaped like a human heart, but it was the size of a car. It was made of uranium ore, but it moved like living tissue, expanding and contracting with each beat. Veins of glowing metal spread out from it into the walls and ceiling, connecting it to the cocoons above. And it was beautiful. That was the worst part. Despite being obviously wrong and alien, there was something beautiful about the way it pulsed with light, the way the energy flowed through its crystalline structure. "How do we destroy it?" I asked. Morrison pulled out a device I'd never seen. Before, it looked like a small bomb with a timer. "Concentrated explosive," he said, "designed to contain radioactive material. If we set this off, it should collapse the chamber and bury the heart under tons of rock." "Will," he corrected, but he didn't sound sure. That's when we heard footsteps behind us. Slow, careful footsteps. We turned around to see the creature, standing at the entrance to the chamber, but it wasn't wearing any of the faces we'd seen before. Now it looked like a combination of all its victims. Tommy's eyes, Sarah's hair, other features I didn't recognize. It was like looking at a family portrait painted by someone insane. "You found our heart," it said with voices that layered over each other. "Isn't it beautiful? Every person who died from radiation in this desert feeds it. Every cancer patient, every accident victim, every government test subject. They all become part of us." "Where's Joseph?" Margaret asked. The creature smiled with too many mouths. "Joseph served his purpose. He's part of us now. He wanted to see his grandson again, so we gave him what he wanted. Forever." Morrison was trying to set the timer on his device, but his hands were shaking too badly. "Let me," I said, taking it from him. The creature tilted its head. "You still think you can stop this, Vince? You still think death is an ending instead of a beginning?" I looked at the timer. 60 seconds. That should be enough time to get out of the chamber before the explosion. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I came here to die, but not like this." I started the timer and threw the device toward the uranium heart. The creature screamed, with every voice it had ever stolen, and the sound was like the world ending. "Run!" I shouted. We ran through the tunnels as fast as we could. Behind us, the creature was making sounds like nothing I'd ever heard, screaming and roaring and crying all at once. The uranium heart's beating was getting faster, like it knew what was coming. "How much time?" Margaret yelled. I looked at my watch. 40 seconds! Morrison was falling behind. The radiation was hitting him harder than us, and he kept stumbling. Margaret grabbed his arm and helped him along. We reached the ladder to level B3 just as the creature caught up with us. It moved wrong now, like it was having trouble keeping its shape. Parts of it kept shifting between different faces and bodies. "You don't understand," it said with Joseph's voice. "We're not the monster here, we're the victims. Every person you see in us died because of government lies and corporate greed." "I know," I said, starting up the ladder. "But that doesn't make what you're doing right." "Right." Now it sounded like Sarah. "They pumped poison into sacred ground. They used my people as test subjects. They covered up mass murder. Where was justice then?" Margaret stopped climbing. "Sarah, is that really you?" For a moment, The creature's face became completely Sarah's. The resemblance to Margaret was striking. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. "Maggie," it said softly, "I'm sorry. I wanted to warn you, but it's so hard to stay me when I know everything everyone else knew. All their pain, all their anger. It becomes mine too." "We can get you out," Margaret said. "We can separate you from this thing." Sarah's face flickered, then became something else. A mix of all the victims. "No, it's too late for that. But you can make sure this doesn't happen anywhere else." 20 seconds! I shouted. We climbed faster. Above us I could see the opening to the main building. Sunlight was streaming down, beautiful and clean after the glowing horror below. The creature followed us up the ladder, but it was moving slower now. The timer was affecting it somehow, like it knew its heart was about to be destroyed. We reached the main floor and ran for the exit. Outside, I could see military vehicles in the distance, Morrison's containment team. They were setting up some kind of barrier around the whole area. 10 seconds. We made it outside, just as the explosion went off. The ground shook like an earthquake. The main building cracked down the middle, and a column of green light shot up into the sky. The sound was incredible. Not just the explosion, but something else. Like hundreds of voices all crying out at once. The uranium heart was dying, and every soul it had trapped was being set free. We were thrown to the ground by the blast. When I looked up, the building was collapsing in on itself, falling into the hole where the underground levels had been. Dust and debris filled the air, glowing with that same sick green light. But something was wrong. The creature was still there. It had made it out of the building somehow, but it looked different now, smaller, weaker. It was having trouble maintaining any single form. Faces and bodies kept shifting and changing every few seconds. The heart, it gasped with a dozen different voices. "You destroyed our heart." "It's over," Margaret said. "Let them go. Let Sarah go." The creature looked at her with Sarah's eyes. For a moment, it seemed almost human. "Sarah wants to tell you something," it said. Before I... It grabbed Margaret's hand. The moment they touched, Margaret's eyes went wide. I could see she was experiencing something. Some kind of shared memory or vision. When she let go, she was crying. "What did she say?" I asked. "She said she's proud of me, and she said to tell Mom and Dad that she wasn't scared at the end. The first time, when she was absorbed, she wasn't scared because she knew I'd come looking for her." The creature was fading now. Its shape was becoming less solid, like smoke in the wind. The voices were getting quieter. "The others," it whispered. "Tommy, Joseph, all of them. They're free now. We can feel them leaving, going to wherever they were supposed to go." "What about you?" I asked. "What happens to you now?" It looked at me with eyes that might have been Sung-Ho's. "We go back to being what we were before the radiation changed us. Just memories, just stories." The creature reached into its shifting form and pulled out something small. It handed it to me, the toy soldier I'd found on my truck yesterday. "Sung-Ho wanted you to have this," it said. "He says he forgives you. He says it wasn't your fault." I took the toy with shaking hands. It felt warm, like a real child had been holding it. "He says Michael is waiting for you," the creature continued. "But not yet. You have work to do first." "What work?" But the creature was almost gone now. Its voice was fading, like a radio losing signal. "The other sites," it whispered. "Nevada, New Mexico, Hanford. The radiation woke up other things, older things. You have to warn them. You have to tell the truth." Then it was gone. Just empty air where it had been standing. Morrison was on his radio, talking to the containment team. "Target neutralized. Repeat, target is neutralized. Begin cleanup procedures." He looked at us. "You need to leave. Now." The official story is that this was a gas leak that caused a collapse. There was no creature, no experiments, no cover-up. "What about the other sites?" Margaret asked. What about the warning? Morrison's face was grim. That's not my department anymore. As of today, I'm requesting early retirement for medical reasons. He showed us his hands. They were shaking badly, and I could see dark spots on his skin that hadn't been there this morning. How long do you have? I asked. 6 months, maybe less. The doctors will say it's cancer from smoking. They won't mention radiation exposure. He looked back at the collapsed building. At least I got to see it end. The military vehicles were getting closer. We had maybe 5 minutes before they reached us. We need to go, I said. Margaret looked at the ruins of the uranium plant. What? About Sarah? Her body, I mean. She's free now, I said. That's what matters. We walked back to our vehicles. My truck was covered in dust and debris, but it still ran. Margaret's SUV had a cracked windshield from the explosion, but it was drivable. As we prepared to leave, Margaret handed me a piece of paper. Sarah's diary, she said. It has locations, other places where the government did radiation experiments, other sites where things might be waking up. I looked at the list. There were dozens of locations across the western United States. Places with names like Atomic City, Nuclear Lake, and Radiation Valley. You really think there are more of these things out there? I asked. Margaret nodded. Sarah was researching them when she disappeared. She found stories from Native American tribes across the country, all similar, all involving creatures that were awakened by nuclear testing. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. The toy soldier was still in my other hand, warm against my palm. Where will you go? I asked. Home first, to tell my parents what really happened to Sarah. Then, she looked at the list. Then I think I have work to do. Someone needs to document this. Someone needs to tell the real story. I nodded. And I think I know someone who might listen. The military convoy was close enough now that we could hear the engines. Time to go. We said goodbye and got in our vehicles. As I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror. The uranium plant was completely gone now, just a smoking crater in the desert. In a few hours, it would be cordoned off and forgotten. Another government secret buried under layers of paperwork and lies. But I wouldn't forget. None of us would. The Geiger counter on my dashboard was silent now. For the first time in days, I wasn't being slowly poisoned by radiation. Morrison had been right. I'd absorbed enough to probably cut years off my life, but not enough to kill me quickly. I had time. Time to visit the other sites on Margaret's list. Time to find other people who'd seen things they couldn't explain. Time to tell the truth, even if nobody wanted to hear it. As I drove through the desert, I thought about Sung Ho and Michael, about forgiveness and second chances, about the difference between justice and revenge. The creature had been right about one thing. The real monsters weren't the things that crawled out of radioactive holes in the ground. The real monsters were the people who put the poison there in the first place. But maybe, just maybe, that was something we could still change. My name is Rebecca Whitmore, but everyone calls me Becca. I'm 32 years old, and I wish I could forget the worst day of my life. But I can't. Because lately, I don't just remember it. I live it over and over again. I work as a mine safety inspector here in Black Mountain, West Virginia. It's not a fun job, but someone has to make sure the miners stay safe. Someone has to check that the equipment won't break and kill people. I learned that lesson the hard way. 3 years ago, I had a twin sister named Jenny. We looked exactly the same brown hair, same green eyes, same small scar on our left hand from when we fell off our bikes as kids. People could never tell us apart. Sometimes, I think that's why what happened hurts so much. When I look in the mirror now, I see her face looking back at me. Jenny worked in the mines just like half the people in our town. She trusted me to keep her safe. She trusted me to do my job right, but I didn't. The memory always starts the same way. I'm not in my own body anymore. I'm Jenny, walking through the dark tunnel with my hard hat light cutting through the blackness. The air smells like coal dust and machine oil. My boots splash in the small puddles that never seem to dry up down there. I can hear the other miners talking and laughing somewhere behind me. Their voices echo off the walls, but they sound far away. The equipment around me is humming and clicking, doing its job of keeping the tunnel safe. At least it's supposed to, but then I hear it, a sound like metal bending, a groan that comes from deep inside the mountain itself. I stop walking and listen. My heart starts beating faster. "That don't sound right," I say, but my voice sounds strange. It's Jenny's voice, not mine, because in this memory I am Jenny. I look up at the ceiling, and I can see the support beams. They're the ones I approved last week, the ones I signed, off on, saying they were safe, but now, looking at them through Jenny's eyes, I can see something I missed. A crack. A small line running down one of the main supports. "Oh no," I whisper. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." I try to run, but my legs feel heavy, like I'm moving through thick mud. The groaning sound gets louder. Dust starts falling from the ceiling like snow. Then I hear the other miners behind me, their voices changing from laughter to fear. "Run!" someone shouts. "The whole thing's coming down!" But it's too late. The beam breaks with a sound like thunder. The mountain falls. I feel the weight hit. Me. Not just the rocks and dirt, but the crushing weight of knowing that my sister Becca, me, did this. She approved the equipment that failed. She's the reason I'm going to die down here in the dark. The pain is terrible, but worse than that is the sadness. I think about all the things I'll never get to do. I think about how scared Becca will be when she finds out. I think about how she'll blame herself for the rest of her life. "I forgive you," I try to say, but the rocks are too heavy. I can't breathe. Everything goes black, and then I wake up. I'm back in my own bed, in my own body, covered in sweat and crying, but I can still feel the weight of those rocks. I can still taste the coal dust. I can still feel Jenny's love for me, even as she died because of my mistake. This has been happening every night for 2 weeks now. I don't just dream about Jenny's death. I experience it exactly like she did. I feel what she felt. I think her thoughts. I die her death. The doctors say it's just guilt and grief making me have bad dreams. But I know it's something else. Something's wrong in Black Mountain. Something's making me live through Jenny's last moments over and over again. And the worst part? Last night when I was dying as Jenny, I heard something new, a voice in the darkness calling my name. Not Jenny's name, mine. "Rebecca," it whispered, "come find me. Come down to where your sister died." I think something in those mines wants me to join Jenny, and I'm starting to think I might not have a choice. The next morning I drove to the mine office like I do every day. But everything felt different now. The mountain looked bigger somehow, like it was watching me. The trees seemed too quiet. Even the birds weren't singing. I wasn't the only one having problems. Tom Sullivan was already waiting for me in the parking lot. He used to be the foreman at the mine, but after the accident, he couldn't go back down there. Now he just sits in his truck most days, staring at the mine entrance. Tom's boy, Danny, died in the same cave-in that killed Jenny. Danny was only 8 years old. He wasn't supposed to be in the mine at all, but sometimes kids sneak down there to play. Tom blames himself for not watching his son better that day. "Becca," Tom called out as I got out of my car. His voice was shaky. "I need to talk to you." Tom looked terrible. His hair was messy, his clothes were wrinkled, and his eyes were red like he hadn't slept in days. He walked over to me, moving slow like an old man, even though he's only 40. "What's wrong, Tom?" I asked, though I had a feeling I already knew. "I'm hearing things," he whispered, looking around to make sure nobody else was listening. "Down in the mines. I keep going back there, even though I know I shouldn't." My stomach felt cold. "What kind of things?" Danny's voice. Tom's hands were shaking. "He's singing to me, Becca, that song we used to sing together, Amazing Grace, but he's deep in the mine, way down where the accident happened." I wanted to tell Tom it was just his grief playing tricks on him. That's what the doctors would say. But after my own strange dreams, I couldn't. When did this start? I asked. 2 weeks ago. Same time you started looking like you haven't slept. 2 weeks, the same time my dreams began. Tom, you need to stay away from those mines. They're not safe right now. I can't, he said, and his voice cracked like he might cry. He needs me, Becca. Danny's scared down there in the dark. He keeps calling for his daddy. Before I could say anything else, Dr. Webb pulled up in his fancy car. Marcus Webb used to work for the mining company as their chemical engineer. He designed some new compounds that were supposed to make mining safer and faster, but after the accident he quit and started working at the hospital. Dr. Webb got out of his car and walked over to us. He looked just as tired as Tom, but in a different way. Where Tom looked sad and broken, Dr. Webb looked desperate. Rebecca, Tom, Dr. Webb nodded to us. Have either of you noticed anything unusual lately? Tom and I looked at each other. Unusual? How? I asked. Dr. Webb glanced around, then leaned closer. My daughter Sarah has been very sick, leukemia. The doctors say it might be from chemical exposure. He paused. But lately, she's been drawing pictures. Pictures of something that lives in the mine. He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket and handed it to me. I opened it up and felt my blood turn cold. It was a child's drawing, done in crayon, but it was perfect. Too perfect. It showed the inside of a mine tunnel with something big and dark at the end. The thing had too many arms and legs, and its face looked like it was made of melted metal. Sarah's never been in the mines, Dr. Webb said quietly. She's been in the hospital for months. But she drew this yesterday and told me it was the thing that's calling everyone home. The three of us stood there in the parking lot, staring at the drawing. The mountain loomed over us, and suddenly I felt like we were being watched. There's something else, Dr. Webb continued. I've been running tests on water samples from around the mine. The chemical levels are wrong, not just high, wrong. Like the compounds are changing into something else. Tom made a small sound, like a whimper. Danny told me the water tastes like pennies now. He said it makes his tummy hurt. Tom, I said gently, Danny isn't... I know what you're going to say, Tom interrupted. I know my boy is dead, but I also know what I hear. And if there's even a chance he's somehow still down there, still needs help. He trailed off. Dr. Webb folded up his daughter's drawing and put it back in his pocket. I think we're all experiencing something that science can't explain yet. But I intend to find out what it is. Why? I asked. Because my daughter is dying, and whatever's in that mine might be the key to saving her. His voice was cold and determined. The chemical changes in the water, Sarah's drawings, the voices you're hearing, it's all connected. Just then we heard singing, faint but clear, coming from the direction of the mine entrance. It was a hymn, Amazing Grace, sung by a voice that sounded young and sweet. Tom's face went white. That's him. That's my Danny. The singing stopped. We all stood there in the morning sun, but I felt cold all over. Something was definitely wrong in Black Mountain. Something that had started with the mine collapse and was getting worse every day. And whatever it was, it wanted us to come closer. That afternoon, I had to do something I'd been putting off for weeks. I had to go back into the mines for a safety inspection. The company needed me to check some new equipment before the miners could use it. My hands were shaking as I put on my hard hat and checked my flashlight. Tom offered to come with me, but I told him no. He'd been through enough already. Be careful down there, Becca, he said. And if you hear Danny singing, don't follow the sound. Promise me. I promised, even though I wasn't sure I could keep that promise if I heard Jenny's voice. The mine entrance looked the same as always, but it felt different. The air coming out of the tunnel was warmer than usual, and it had a strange smell. Not just the normal coal dust and machine oil, but something sweet and chemical, like medicine mixed with flowers. I walked into the tunnel, my footsteps echoing off the walls. The deeper I went, the stranger things became. First, I noticed the walls. There were patches that glowed softly in the dark, like someone had painted them with glow-in-the-dark paint. But when I shined my flashlight on them, I could see they weren't painted. The rock itself was glowing. The glowing spots formed patterns. At first, I thought they were random, but the more I looked, the more they looked like writing. Not English, not any language I knew, but definitely words. Like someone or something was trying to tell me something. I kept walking, trying to ignore the glowing walls. But then I heard something that made me stop. Breathing. Deep, slow breathing that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I held my breath and listened. It wasn't my imagination. The mine was breathing. Get it together, Becca, I whispered to myself. It's just the air circulation system. But I knew our air circulation system, and it didn't sound like this. This sounded alive. I finally reached the area where I needed to check the new equipment. It was a large open space where several tunnels met. The company had installed new support beams and safety equipment here, and I needed to make sure everything was solid. But when I saw the equipment, my blood turned cold. It was identical to the equipment that had failed during the cave-in. The same brand, the same model, everything. Even the serial numbers were close. It was like the company had ordered exact replacements for the beams that killed Jenny and Danny. I got closer to examine them, and that's when I saw it. The same crack, the same thin line running down the main support beam that I had missed 3 years ago. The crack that had caused the cave-in. No, I said out loud. No, no, no. This can't be happening. I pulled out my phone to call the office, but I had no signal down here. I needed to get back to the surface and report this immediately. No one could work with this equipment, but as I turned to leave, I heard a voice on my radio. Becca, Becca, can you hear me? I stopped walking. The voice was familiar, but it couldn't be who I thought it was. Becca, it's me. It's Jenny. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the radio. That's not possible. I know it sounds crazy, but it's really me. I'm down here, Becca. I'm trapped down here with Danny and all the others. Tears started running down my face. Jenny, you're dead. You died in the cave-in. I know. But something happened after the accident, something with the chemicals Dr. Webb was using. They changed us. We're still here, but we're different now. I looked around the glowing tunnel. The breathing sound was getting louder, and I could swear I heard other voices now, whispering just too quiet to understand. Where are you? I asked. Deep. Deeper than you've ever been. The chemicals seeped down into the old parts of the mine, and that's where we are. But Becca, you have to listen to me. Something bad is happening. What do you mean? The thing that's keeping us here, it's growing stronger. Every time someone dies in the mine, it gets bigger, and it's planning something terrible. I sat down on a rock trying to process what I was hearing. What kind of thing? We don't know exactly. It's made from all the pain and fear of everyone who died here. But it's also made from Dr. Webb's chemicals. It's smart, Becca, too smart, and it's hungry. The glowing on the walls was getting brighter. The breathing sound was so loud now it sounded like a giant sleeping nearby. Jenny, how do I help you? You need to stop people from using that equipment. It's not broken by accident. The thing down here, it's making the equipment fail on purpose. It wants more people to die so it can grow stronger. I looked back at the cracked support beam. You mean it's controlling the equipment? Yes. And Becca, it can control other things too. It talks to Tom through Danny's voice. It's been giving Dr. Webb ideas for his experiments. It's even been affecting Pastor Kane's church. Pastor Kane, go see him. You'll understand. But be careful. The more people it affects, the stronger it gets. And it really wants you, Becca. It wants you because you feel so guilty about what happened to me. The radio started making static. Noises, and Jenny's voice was getting harder to hear. I have to go, she said. It knows I'm talking to you. But Becca, whatever you do, don't drink the water. The groundwater is contaminated now. Anyone who drinks it starts seeing things, remembering things that aren't their memories. Jenny, wait. But the radio went silent. I sat in the glowing tunnel for a few more minutes, trying to calm down. Then I got up and ran. I ran as fast as I could back to the surface, past the breathing walls and the glowing writing, past all the impossible things I'd seen. When I got outside, the normal sunlight felt like a blessing, but I knew I couldn't pretend this wasn't happening anymore. Whatever was down in those mines, it was real and it was dangerous. I had to warn people, starting with Pastor Kane, but first I had to call the office and shut down the mine. That equipment could not be used. As I pulled out my phone, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There were water trucks parked near the town's main water tower. Workers were pumping something from the trucks into our water supply, and one of the trucks had Dr. Webb's name on the side. I drove straight to Pastor Kane's church, my heart pounding the whole way. The church sat on a hill overlooking the town, and I'd been going there since I was little. But as I pulled into the parking lot, something felt wrong. The church was too quiet. Usually on weekday afternoons, you could hear Pastor Kane practicing his sermon or the ladies cleaning inside. Today, there was nothing. I walked up to the front door and knocked. No answer. I tried the handle and the door opened. "Pastor Kane," I called out. "It's Becca Whitmore. Are you here?" I heard voices from inside the main room where we held services. But they weren't talking. They were humming, all together like a choir. But the song was strange, not any hymn I knew. I walked into the main room and stopped dead. About 20 people sat in the pews, all humming the same tune. But their eyes were closed, and they were swaying back and forth together, like they were all connected somehow. Pastor Kane stood at the front, his arms raised, but his eyes were closed too. "Pastor Kane," I said louder. All the humming stopped at once. Every person in the room opened their eyes and looked at me, but their eyes weren't normal anymore. They were milky white, like they were blind. But I could tell they could see me perfectly. "Rebecca," Pastor Kane said, but his voice sounded different, deeper. "We've been waiting for you. What's going on here?" I asked, taking a step back toward the door. "We've been blessed," said Mrs. Patterson from the third row, but her voice sounded like Pastor Kane's voice, deep and strange. "The water has opened." "Our minds," said Mr. Johnson. Same voice. "We can see the truth now," said little Sally Morrison, who was only 12 years old. But she had the same deep voice as all the others. I realized they were all speaking with the same voice. Like one person talking through 20 different mouths. "You've been drinking the water," I said. It wasn't a question. Pastor Kane smiled, but it wasn't his smile. "The water shows us what really happened in the mine, Rebecca. We can see through the eyes of everyone who died. We feel their pain, their fear, their anger. But we also feel something else," Mrs. Patterson added. "Something that grew from all that death and chemical poison. Something that wants to help us understand." "It's not trying to help you," I said. "It's using you." All 20 people laughed at the same time. The sound was horrible. "You don't understand yet," Pastor Kane said. "But you will. The entity in the mine isn't evil. It's evolution. It's what humans become when we mix with the chemicals that Dr. Webb created." My blood went cold. "What do you know about Dr. Webb?" Pastor Kane reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder full of papers. "We know everything now. The entity shares its knowledge with us." He handed me the folder. Inside were documents from the mining company, memos between executives, and lab reports signed by Dr. Webb. I read the first memo, and my hands started shaking. It was dated 2 years before the mine collapse. The mining company executives were discussing a new project. They wanted to create workers who could survive in toxic environments, workers who wouldn't get sick from chemical exposure. workers who would be cheaper to keep alive than regular humans. Dr. Webb had been hired to develop chemical compounds that would change human biology, make people stronger, more resistant to poison, less likely to complain about dangerous working conditions. The next document was a lab report. Dr. Webb had been testing his compounds on lab rats. The rats had grown bigger and stronger, but they'd also become aggressive and strange. Their brains had changed, becoming more connected to each other somehow, but the worst part was the last memo. It was from Dr. Webb to the company president, dated 1 week before the mine collapse. "The human trials are ready to begin," it said. "I recommend starting with the miners who have complained most about safety conditions. If something goes wrong, we can claim it was an accident." I looked up at Pastor Kane and his congregation. They were all staring at me with those milky white eyes. "They used us as test subjects," I whispered. "Yes," Pastor Kane said. "The chemical compounds were in the air we breathed, the water we drank, the dust that covered everything. But the experiment went wrong. Instead of creating obedient workers, it created something much more powerful. The mine collapse wasn't an accident," I realized. "The entity made it happen." "The entity was born from the collapse," Mrs. Patterson said. "All that death, all that fear, all those chemicals mixing together in the deep places of the mine. It became something new, something that could think and plan and grow. And now it's growing stronger," little Sally added. "Every time someone drinks the contaminated water, they become part of it, part of us." I looked around at all their strange blank faces. "How many people in town have been drinking the water?" Pastor Kane smiled again. "Everyone, Rebecca. The water trucks finished their deliveries this morning. By tomorrow, the whole town will be like us." My stomach dropped. "I have to warn people." "You can try," Pastor Kane said, "but it's too late. The entity isn't just in our town anymore. Dr. Webb has been shipping his chemicals to mining sites all over the country. Soon, there will be entities everywhere." I backed toward the door. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the entity wants you to join us willingly," Pastor Kane said. "You feel guilty about Jenny's death. You blame yourself. The entity can take that pain away. You can be with Jenny again." "Jenny asked me to stop this," I said. All 20 people laughed, that horrible laugh again. "The thing you talked to on the radio wasn't Jenny," Pastor Kane said. "It was the entity, using Jenny's voice, using your love for her to lure you deeper into the mine." My world started spinning. No, that was really Jenny, I could tell. The entity knows everything Jenny knew. It has all her memories, all her feelings. It can be her perfectly, but it's not her, Rebecca. Jenny is dead. She's been dead for 3 years. I turned and ran out of the church. Behind me, I could hear all 20 voices humming that strange song again. But now, I knew what it was. It wasn't a hymn at all. It was a lullaby. The same lullaby my mother used to sing to Jenny and me when we were scared. The entity knew everything about me, and it was using that knowledge to break me down. I got in my car and drove toward the mine. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something. The whole town was infected now, and it was spreading. But as I drove, I kept thinking about what Pastor Kane had said. What if the voice on the radio really wasn't Jenny? What if everything I thought I knew was wrong? There was only one way to find out. I had to go back into the mine and face whatever was down there. Even if it killed me. I was halfway to the mine when I saw Tom's truck parked on the side of the road. He was sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead. I pulled over and got out. "Tom," I called, "are you okay?" He turned his head toward me, and I saw that his eyes had turned milky white, just like the people at the church. But when he spoke, it was still his own voice. "Becca, don't come any closer," he said. "I drank some water an hour ago. I can feel it changing me. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospital can help me now." Tom got out of his truck slowly. "But I'm fighting it, Becca. part of me is still me, and I need to tell you something important before I lose myself completely. I stayed where I was, even though I wanted to help him. Danny really is down there, Tom said. Not alive, but not gone either. The entity keeps the dead around to use their voices, their memories. It's like a collection. Tom, we need to leave, right now. I can't leave. It's calling to me too strongly. Now. But you need to know, Dr. Webb isn't just working with the entity. He's become part of it. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He's been injecting himself with the chemicals for months, trying to become immune to the poison so he could save his daughter, but instead he's turning into something else. Something between human and whatever that thing is in the mine. Tom's voice was getting deeper, more like the voice I'd heard at the church. He was running out of time. Where is he now? I asked. The hospital, with Sarah. She died this morning, Becca. And when she died, she became part of the entity too. Now it has her innocent mind mixed with all that anger and pain. I felt sick, a child's mind trapped in that horrible thing. Tom, fight it. You can beat this. Tom smiled sadly. I'm tired of fighting, Becca. Danny's calling to me, and for the first time in 3 years I can answer him. His eyes were completely white now. But I'm going to use what's left of my will to help you. How? The entity is strongest in the deep parts of the mine, where all the chemicals pooled after the accident. But it has a heart, a center. If you can destroy that, you might be able to stop it. Where? The old mining shaft, the one they sealed up 50 years ago. That's where it all started. That's where you'll find what you need to end this. Tom got back in his truck. I'm going to the mine now. The entity wants me to bring more people down there, but I'm going to fight it as long as I can. Maybe I can slow it down. Tom, don't... But he was already driving away, heading toward the mine. I got back in my car and drove toward town. I needed to see what was happening there, and I needed to find Dr. Webb. What I saw when I got to Main Street made me want to turn around and run. People were walking through the streets, but they were all moving in the same direction, toward the mine. Men, women, children, old people, all with those milky white eyes, all walking calmly like they were going to church on Sunday morning. I recognized most of them. Mrs. Johnson from the grocery store, Mr. Martinez who fixed cars, the Thompson family who lived next door to me, all of them infected by the water, all of them under the entity's control. But the worst part was that they looked happy, peaceful, like they'd found something they'd been searching for their whole lives. I drove to the hospital, weaving around, the walking people. The hospital parking lot was empty, except for one car, Dr. Webb's. Inside, the hospital was dark and quiet. The lights were off, and it looked like everyone had left in a hurry. I followed the sound of machines beeping until I found Dr. Webb in the children's ward. He was sitting next to a small bed, holding the hand of a little girl who wasn't moving. Sarah, his daughter. But Dr. Webb didn't look human anymore. His skin had a greenish tint, like old copper. His hair had fallen out, and strange marks covered his scalp, marks that looked like the glowing writing I'd seen on the mine walls. When he looked up at me, his eyes weren't white like the others. They were completely black. "Rebecca," he said, and his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I've been waiting for you. Dr. Webb, what have you done to yourself?" "I've evolved," he said simply. "I've become what humanity needs to become to survive in a poisoned world." I looked at Sarah. She was so small, so young. "Is she dead?" "Yes, but also more alive than she's ever been. Her consciousness is part of the entity now. She's helping it understand innocence, wonder, joy, things it never had before." "You killed your own daughter." Dr. Webb's face didn't change. "I saved her. The leukemia would have taken her anyway. Now she'll exist forever as part of something greater than any individual human." "You're insane." "I'm practical." Dr. Webb stood up, and I could see that his body had changed too. He was taller, his arms were longer, and when he moved it was too smooth, like he was floating. The entity showed me the future, Rebecca. Humanity has poisoned the world beyond repair. Normal humans will all die from the chemicals we've put in the air and water. But we can change, we can adapt, by becoming monsters, by becoming something new, something better, something that can survive in the world we've created. Dr. Webb walked toward me, and I backed toward the door. The entity wants you to join willingly, Rebecca. It values your guilt, your pain, your love for Jenny. Those emotions will make it stronger, more complete. What if I refuse? Dr. Webb smiled and his teeth were black. Then it will take you anyway. Every person in town is walking to the mine right now. Soon they'll all be part of the collective. And you'll be alone against something that has the combined intelligence of thousands of minds. I turned and ran. Behind me, I heard Dr. Webb laughing, but the sound was wrong, like several voices laughing at different times. Outside, more people were walking toward the mine. The whole town was emptying out, drawn by whatever was calling to them from the deep places underground. I got in my car and drove toward the mine one last time. I didn't have a plan, but I couldn't run away. If there was even a chance that some part of Jenny was trapped down there, I had to try to help her. And maybe, if I was very lucky, I could find a way to stop this thing before it spread beyond our little town. But as I drove, I could see lights in the distance, other towns, other mining communities. And I wondered if it was already too late. The entity wasn't just local anymore, it was spreading, and I might be the last normal human left in hundreds of miles. I parked my car at the mine entrance and sat there for a moment, trying to gather my courage. Hundreds of people were walking into the mine like they were going to work on a normal day. They didn't push or shove. They just walked calmly into the darkness, their white eyes reflecting my headlights. I grabbed my flashlight and followed them. The mine tunnels were crowded but quiet. All these people moving together but nobody talking. The only sound was footsteps and that strange breathing I'd heard before, but much louder now. I tried to stay behind the crowd, but after a while, I realized I needed to find a different path. Tom had told me about the old mining shaft, the sealed one. That's where I needed to go. I found a side tunnel that the crowd wasn't using and followed it deeper into the mountain. The glowing writing on the walls was brighter now, pulsing like a heartbeat. And I could hear something else, a low humming sound that seemed to come from the rock itself. The deeper I went, the warmer it got. By the time I found the old shaft, I was sweating despite the underground air. The shaft had been sealed with concrete and metal 50 years ago, but something had broken through from the inside. The concrete was cracked and bulging outward, like something huge had pushed against it until it broke. I squeezed through the opening and immediately wished I hadn't. The shaft opened into a massive underground chamber that I'd never known existed. And in the center of it was the most horrible and beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was like a giant heart made of crystal and metal and something that looked like colored glass. It was bigger than a house, and it was beating. Actually beating, pumping glowing liquid through tubes that spread out through the walls and ceiling like blood vessels. The heart was surrounded by all the people from town. They stood in circles around it, holding hands, swaying back and forth, humming that strange tune. Their eyes were closed now, and they looked peaceful, like they were having the best dream of their lives. But what scared me most was that I could see faces in the heart itself, faces pressed against the crystal like they were trapped inside. I saw Jenny's face, and Danny's, and dozens of others, all the people who had died in the mines over the years, all trapped in this thing. Welcome, Rebecca. I turned around and saw Dr. Webb standing behind me, but he looked even less human than before. His skin was completely green now, and the markings on his head were glowing. When he walked, his feet didn't make any sound. "This is the heart of evolution," he said, gesturing toward the beating crystal. "Every mind that joins us makes it stronger. Every death feeds it. Every moment of fear or pain or love becomes part of its power. Let them go, I said, though I knew it was pointless. They don't want to go. Look at them, Rebecca. Look how peaceful they are. For the first time in their lives, they're part of something bigger than themselves. They're not alone anymore. I looked at the faces in the heart again. Jenny's face was right in the center, and her eyes were open. She was looking at me. "Jenny," I whispered. Her mouth moved, but I couldn't hear her voice over the humming and the heartbeat. But I could read her lips. "Run," she was saying. "Run away." "She's not telling you to run from us," Dr. Webb said. "She's telling you to run from the pain of being alone. Join us, Rebecca. Join your sister. If I join you, will you let the others go?" Dr. Webb laughed, and this time it was definitely several voices laughing at once. "They're already free. Free from worry, free from pain, free from the loneliness that makes humans so miserable. They're prisoners. They're family." I looked around the chamber. There had to be a way to stop this. The heart was clearly the center of everything. If I could destroy it, maybe I could free everyone. But how do you destroy something that big? Something that was clearly alive and thinking? Then I remembered something Tom had said. The entity was made from death and chemicals and fear. But it was also made from the mining equipment that had failed. It was connected to everything in the mine. I pulled out my phone and tried to call the surface to report a gas leak or structural damage, anything that would bring help. But there was no signal down here. Then I had another idea. "Dr. Webb," I said, "you were a chemical engineer. You know how to make explosions, right?" He tilted his head, curious. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I'm thinking about joining you, but I want to understand how this all works first. How did you make something this powerful?" Dr. Webb smiled, proud of himself. "It's quite simple, really. The chemicals I designed were meant to change human biology, but when they mixed with the fear and trauma of the mine collapse, they became something new. A living chemical reaction that feeds on emotion and grows stronger with each mind. It absorbs, and it's connected to all the mining equipment. Of course, the entity can control anything that's been exposed to the chemicals. Every machine, every vehicle, every piece of electronic equipment in the mine. That's what I needed to know." I walked closer to the heart, pretending to be interested in joining. Dr. Webb followed me, still talking about his great achievement. "The beautiful part," he said, "is that it's spreading. Every mining site that used my chemicals is growing its own entity. Soon, there will be a network of them across the country, all connected, all working together." "That's horrible," I said. "That's evolution." I was now close enough to touch the heart. The faces inside were looking at me, and I could see their mouths moving. They were all saying the same thing. "Run!" But I wasn't going to run. Instead, I did something that Dr. Webb wasn't expecting. I pressed my hands against the crystal surface of the heart and closed my eyes. Immediately, I was flooded with memories that weren't mine. I experienced Jenny's death again, but this time I also felt Danny's death, and the deaths of dozens of other miners over the years. I felt their fear, their pain, their love for the families they were leaving behind, but I also felt something else. I felt the entity's fear. It was afraid of being alone again, afraid of losing all the mines it had collected, afraid that if people stopped dying in the mines, it would fade away. "What are you doing?" Dr. Webb screamed, but his voice sounded far away. I opened my eyes and looked at Jenny's face in the crystal. "I'm sorry," I said to her. "I'm sorry I failed you, but I'm going to fix this." Jenny smiled and mouthed one word: "Go." I pulled my hands away from the heart and ran toward the tunnel entrance. Behind me, Dr. Webb was screaming, and the heart was beating faster, and all the people were humming louder. But I had felt something. When I touched the heart, I had felt its weakness. The entity was powerful, but it was also fragile. It depended on the chemical reactions to stay alive, and I knew how to stop a chemical reaction. I just needed to get to the surface and find the right equipment. The entity had made one mistake. It had shown me everything it was afraid of, and now I was going to use that fear against it. I ran through the tunnels as fast as I could, following my flashlight beam back toward the surface. Behind me, I could hear the heart beating faster and faster, like it was panicking. The glowing on the walls was getting brighter too, pulsing in time with the heartbeat. When I finally made it outside, the sun was starting to rise. The mine entrance was empty now. Everyone was deep underground with the entity, but I knew they were still alive in there. I had felt their minds when I touched the heart. I drove to the mining company's equipment yard and broke into the chemical storage building. I knew what I was looking for. Neutralizing agents that could stop Dr. Webb's chemical reactions, the same chemicals we used to clean up spills. It took me 3 trips to load enough chemicals into my car. By the time I was done, the sun was fully up, and I could see something that made my heart sink. Smoke was rising from other mountains in the distance. Not just our mountain, but 3 or 4 others. The entities were waking up everywhere, calling. Their own people underground. I drove back to the mine and mixed the chemicals together in big containers, just like I'd learned in my safety training. The mixture would create a reaction that could neutralize Dr. Webb's compounds. If I was right, it would cut off the entity's power source. But I would have to get it down to the heart, and I probably wouldn't make it back out. I loaded the containers onto a minecart and pushed it into the tunnels. The deeper I went, the stranger things became. The walls were breathing so hard now that the whole tunnel was expanding and contracting like the inside of a lung. The glowing writing was moving, rearranging itself into new patterns, and I could hear voices. Not just humming now, but actual voices. All the people who had been absorbed by the entity, all talking at once. I heard Jenny's voice in there, and Tom's and Dr. Webb's and hundreds of others. They were saying my name. "Rebecca," they called. "Come back, don't leave us alone." But underneath all those voices, I heard something else. A sound like crying. The entity was scared. When I reached the chamber with the heart, everything had changed. The crystal was cracked. Now, and the glowing liquid inside was leaking out onto the floor. The people standing around it were swaying more violently, and some of them had fallen down. The entity was dying, and it was taking everyone with it. I had to work fast. I pushed the minecart as close to the heart as I could and started pouring the neutralizing chemicals around its base. As soon as the chemicals touched the glowing liquid, there was a hissing sound and white smoke started rising. The heart's beating got irregular. The faces inside the crystal started moving, pressing against the walls, like they were trying to escape. "No," Dr. Webb's voice echoed through the chamber. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand perfectly," I said, pouring more chemicals. "I'm setting them free. You're killing them. They can't survive outside the entity now. They've been changed too much." I looked at Jenny's face in the crystal. She was smiling now, and she mouthed one word: "Thank you." The cracks in the heart were spreading. The glowing liquid was neutralizing, turning gray and lifeless. And one by one, the faces inside started to fade away. But they didn't look scared. They looked peaceful, free. The heart gave one last, weak, a beat, and then stopped. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. All around the chamber, people started waking up. Their eyes cleared, going from milky white back to normal. They looked around, confused, like they were waking up from a long dream. "Where are we?" Mrs. Johnson asked. "How did we get here?" Mr. Martinez wondered. I helped them find their way back to the surface. It took hours to get everyone out safely. Some people were weak, some were confused, but they were themselves again. Tom was one of the last ones I found. He was sitting by himself in a side tunnel, crying. "I heard him," Tom said when he saw me. "I heard Danny's voice one last time. He said he was okay now. He said he could finally rest." I sat down next to Tom and put my arm around his shoulders. We cried together in the darkness. When we finally made it to the surface, I could see that the smoke from the other mountains had stopped. Whatever I had done here had affected the other entities too. Maybe they were all connected, like Dr. Webb had said. But I knew it wasn't over. 3 months later, I was driving through Pennsylvania when I got a call from the FBI. They wanted to talk to me about some strange incidents at fracking sites, workers going missing, equipment failing in impossible ways, chemical readings that didn't make sense. I told them I'd help, but I knew what I would find. Dr. Webb's chemicals had been used in more places than just coal mines, and wherever those chemicals were, new entities were growing. I quit my old job and started traveling. Now I spend my time going from site to site, looking for the signs, the glowing walls, the breathing sounds, the strange chemical smells. When I find them, I do what I did at Black Mountain. I mix the neutralizing chemicals and destroy the hearts before they get too strong. It's dangerous work, and I'm always alone. But I'm not really alone. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving between sites, I hear Jenny's voice on my radio. Not the entity pretending to be Jenny, the real Jenny, somehow still watching over me. Be careful, Becca, she says. There are more of them than you think. She's right. Every month I find new sites. Every month I have to destroy another heart. Free another group of people who don't even know they're trapped. I don't know if I'll ever get them all. But I have to try, because I learned something when I touched that heart in Black Mountain. I learned that love is stronger than fear, and hope is stronger than despair. And as long as there are people who need saving, I'll keep fighting these things, even if it kills me. But sometimes when I'm really tired and the road seems too long, I remember what Jenny's last words to me were. Thank you. And I know that everything I've lost, everything I've sacrificed, has been worth it. The entities are still out there, but so am I, and I'm not giving up.